Video. Yes.
Good day, one and all. Welcome, or as the case may be, welcome back to the wonderful world of Word 2016. My name is Dan McAllister, and I am your host today. We're stepping into Module 5, where the subjects of discussion will be creating interactive forms, tracking changes, and inserting document references. You will need practice files, and I recommend that you create a folder out on your desktop for our finished files. Let me just maneuver to my desktop. So you'll need to download the Word sample files. They will come in a zipped folder. You'll need to extract that folder, and I recommend putting it out on your desktop. And also I recommend creating a folder named Finished Word Documents. And very often in our lessons, we'll open a document from Word sample files, we'll manipulate it, and then I recommend using the Save As command to save the finished version into the Finished Word Documents folder. That way, if you need to, or if you just want to, you can go back to the Word sample files and have the originals to work with in case you want to practice something again. So, take a moment and make sure you've got practice files, create that Finished Word Documents folder out on your desktop, and we will get started with Module 5. To get started with Module 5, let us open a file named Phone Inquiry Form. So I'm sliding over here to Open Other Documents. I'm going to browse out to my Word sample files folder. Mine's out on the desktop. I've also made a little shortcut for it over here in my favorites area. And we're looking for one named Phone Inquiry Form on the alphabetized list. So Phone Inquiry Form. As it opens, it may open up in what's called the reading mode, and you may see something at the top that says you need to enable editing. And if you see that, go ahead and click on the button to enable editing, and then your screen should look like this. Take a moment and do that. Open up the file named Phone Inquiry Form, please. It should come in looking like. The idea of this phone inquiry form is we work for a real estate office, and we want this available for our receptionist, so that when someone calls in and wants to talk to somebody about properties here, with our company named Burke Properties, we can set up a date, we can assign them to talk to an agent, we can catch the name of the person we're talking to on the phone, grab their phone number, give them some choices of property types to look for, pick out a price range, maybe more than one, required amenities, again, maybe more than one, and a big comments box down here. So that's what we're about to build. We're about to build an interactive form, everyone. So the first thing we should do is turn on something that's available in the ribbon, but it's not automatically installed. So we're going to go up and right-click anywhere in the ribbon. Literally any button in the ribbon, you're going to right-click on it. And in the pop-up menu that appears, click on Customize Ribbon. And then over here at the right-hand side are all the tabs that we normally have available. Home, Insert, Design, Home, Insert, Design. But there's one of these tabs that's available, just not installed just yet. It's called the Developer tab, and we're going to need it to create our interactive form. So let us check mark the Developer tab. And then down here at the bottom, you'll have to click on the Okie dokie button. And now you will have a new tab in there called the Developer tab, and when you click on it, it will look like this. So again, pause our video, catch up with me. What I did was right-click anywhere in the ribbon, customize said ribbon, turn on the checkbox for the Developer tab, OK that, and you should now see the Developer tab up here. Go ahead and click on it, and it should look like this. Catch up with me. Now this next step is not required, but it makes things a little bit easier to see and a little bit easier to work with when you're designing your form, and that's a button right here called Design Mode. So let's click to select the design mode. It should stay gray, and it will affect how things look on your form. It'll make them a little bit easier to work with. So when the receptionist answers the phone and someone on the phone says, I would like to make an appointment to talk to one of your agents about some properties, then we would want to record the date of the call, or maybe the date of the appointment that we're going to make. Maybe we'll call it the date of the appointment. So first thing I'm going to do is click just to the right of the colon in next to the word date, and I recommend leave a little space there. I'm just tapping the space bar. And now I'd like to insert something called a date picker that will let our receptionist actually choose a date without having to type it in. She'll see a little mini calendar. So here comes our first, what's called a control. And the one that we're going to choose is right here. As you hover over it, you will see that it's called Date Picker. I can't see it right here because I'm zoomed in with my third-party software, but we're going for that little button right there. It's supposed to look like a little calendar. So I'm going to click on that. Here comes my Date Picker, and you'll see that it says click to tap or enter a date. And so we're not going to try to use it right now. We're just going to leave it sitting like that, and in a few minutes we'll go actually try it out. I recommend design form before you start testing it out. That's just my personal preference. All right, next, I want to create a list of agents that are available on a pull-down list. So far, all we did for the date was we clicked, we put a cursor there, we hit the space bar, and inserted a date picker. If you want to do that now, that's probably a good idea. Pause the video, put in your date picker, and then come on back and we'll pick up from there. And so now we're going to put in for the agent, we're going to make a lookup list, and we'll fill in the names of the agents so that our receptionist can choose the name of an agent quickly. So I'm clicking next to the cursor. So I'm clicking next to the colon after the word agent, I'm hitting the space bar, and I'm going to insert what's called a lookup list or a list box. So I'm hovering over the different choices up here. We got one called a combo box. Got one called a drop-down list content control. That's the one I would like. That guy right there, the drop-down list content control. When I click on that, it puts in a little placeholder here. It says choose an item. And then in order to put in the items from which they will choose, I'm going to need to look at the properties of this object. And one cool way to get to the properties is to right-click on this little, I don't know what to call it, a crescent over here at the edge. Right-clicking on that, and then one of the choices on my pop-up menu is to set properties for this item. So I'm going to click on the properties. Why don't you take a moment and do that? So you're going to choose the list control, right-click on its border over here, and then on the pop-up menu, choose properties to get where I am. Take a moment and do that, please. Now, some of these properties we don't really need to fill in. For example, the title and the tag, our user is not going to see those. They're not really required. You can choose what color you want this thing to be. I'm not going to worry about that too much. But I would like to set it up so that my user can't accidentally delete this control. So let's put in a check mark that says control cannot be deleted. I don't want to check mark the one that says control cannot be edited, because I need them to be able to edit it. I need them to be able to choose from the list. And then last but certainly not least, we have to add the names of our agents, our sales agents that are available. So I'm looking for a way to add the names. Yeah, it seems likely I'm going to go over here and click on add, doesn't it? And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So far all I've done is checkmark content cannot be deleted. Now I'm going to start adding the names. So I click the add button, and it says display name, and as I fill in the display name, it will fill in the value to be the same thing. The only time that I would really use the value itself is if I'm going to be referring to it in a macro. So we'll fill in the display name for our first salesperson, and that will be Dizzy Gillespie. And then I'm going to click OK, and Dizzy appears in here. And now I'm going to add another one. We'll have, how about Charlie Parker? And I'm going to click on OK. By the way, notice OK has this blue box around it called the focus box. What that means is if you just hit the Enter key, it will choose the OK because it's got the focus box. So I don't really need to grab my mouse and click on OK. I can just finish typing Charlie Parker and hit the Enter key, and it will assume that I wanted to choose OK. All right, time to add at least one more here. How about trombonist J.J. Johnson? I'm picking these names out of famous jazz names. Trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie, alto sax player Charlie Parker, trombonist J.J. Johnson, and maybe that'll be enough. So take a moment and create your list. You don't have to use the same names as mine, but if you would like to, these are all relatively famous and unfortunately long passed away jazz artists. So remember, you have to click on Add to open up that window, and then type in the name and hit Enter or click OK, and then add some more. Add at least 3, and notice there's still going to be one here called Choose an Item. And the fact that it will be at the top means that's what will actually show up in here when they go through the form. So put the video on pause, catch up with me there, go to the properties, We want to make sure they can't delete the object here, and then put in some names by adding them. And when you're done, click OK, like I'm about to do. All right, welcome back. There is one property that I should set for my date picker here as well. So why don't we right-click on its border, go to its properties again. Actually, you'll notice when I right-clicked on the left crescent, I didn't get properties in my pop-up menu. So I'm going to go over to the right-hand side here and right-click on that one, and lo and behold, look, properties for this. And the only property I want to set here is that it can't be deleted. Again, I want them to be able to edit it. I want them to be able to pick a date in there. And also the other thing I have here is how do I want the date to look? Do I want the short date? Do I want it spelled out like the day of the week and all that kind of stuff? I'm just going to go with the short date. You can try a different one there if you would like. And then at the end of that, you're going to go down and click on the OK button, which is right now slightly off my screen, but the OK button does have the blue focus box around it, so when I hit the Enter key, it's the same as choosing OK. So do that. Set this property for the date picker, and notice when I right-click on the left side, I didn't get any properties, but when I right-clicked on the right side over here, I did get those properties. So take a moment and set that property so they can't accidentally delete that control. All right, time to move on here. So now we want to have a place to put in the client name. That is the person that's on the phone. Now, going into that, I'm not going to have a list of everybody who might call, so I'm not going to be able to use a list box. We're just going to have a box where they can type stuff in called a text box. So again, I'm going to click to place my insertion point just to the right of the colon. I choose to hit the space bar, and now I'm going to put in what's called a text box. Now there's two of them up here. They have an AA and another AA, and this is not about AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. This is about a rich text format box or a plain text format box, and we're going to go with the plain text. So I'm going to click on the plain text AA, and it drops it right there at the insertion point, and then I would like to set up properties of that. And of course, to do that, I'm going to go over here and right-click on the right side crescent and go to the properties of this control. So again, I would like to set it up so that they can't accidentally delete it. So I'm going to check mark the thing that says content control cannot be deleted. And one of the differences between a rich text format text box versus a plain text box is this checkbox right down here that says allow carriage returns multiple paragraphs. What that means is that they could actually type a name and hit the Enter key and type something else in there, like here's their name and here's what they do, or something like that. I don't really need that for this particular control, but if I had gone with the rich text format, I wouldn't even have that available. So for our purposes, all we're doing is protecting it so they can't delete it, and then click OK or hit the Enter key. All right, you do that. Catch up with me. All right, welcome back. We're going to put in a place for their phone number. And in this case, I think I'll just use a text box. So we're going to click right after phone, we're going to hit the space bar, and let's insert another text box and protect it so that they can't delete it. You know how to do that. So put the video on pause, do that. While you're doing that, I'll be doing that. It will be done as you come back to the video. All right, here's my property window. Content cannot be deleted. Okay, that. So everyone, I'm going to break this session right here just because it's getting kind of long. When we come back, we'll fill out the property type list box. We'll have some checkboxes here for price range and some checkboxes here for required amenities and a text box down here at the bottom. So I'm going to end this session and then come on back for the next one. We'll finish out this form. So the next content control we need is going to be another list box. That is this guy right here. The drop-down list content control. And then for the properties, we're going to want to protect it so they can't accidentally delete it, and we're going to give them a list of property types from which to choose, and that will be these property types: residential, commercial, and industrial. Those will be the choices that you will add to your drop-down list. So put the video on pause, go set that up. While you're doing it, I will be doing it in the background. So residential, commercial, and industrial property types. Have at it, everybody. So here's what your property should look like. Make sure that the content control can't be deleted. I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable there. It's not a control that's kind of content. It's the content control can't be deleted. And then here is what I added: residential, commercial, industrial, and okay that. All right, we've got a couple more things to do here, and then we'll be able to test out our form. So I would like to put in some check boxes here where they can choose one or more than one price range. And I would like to put the check boxes out here at about the 2-inch mark, which means I'm going to need a tab stop right there at the 2-inch mark. And if I'm going to have 3 lines with tab stops, then I need to select those 3 paragraphs first. And then a nice quick way to add a tab stop. Now you might be looking up here at the ruler and notice there are some tab stops up there already. Now if you were with us in an earlier lesson, we were talking about how you can set the tab stops and remove them, and there was a menu choice for doing it. Here's a nice easy way to remove tab stops that are there already. You simply grab them and drag them down right off the ruler. So these little L's up there, those are tab stops. Grab those, drag them down off the ruler. And then to place a left-aligned tab stop where we want it for these 3 paragraphs, just go up here and click right at the 2-inch mark, and you should get a left-aligned tab stop there, a little L. So take a moment, make sure you select all 3 of those paragraphs first, and then remove the tab stops by dragging them down, and then add a tab stop at the 2-inch mark by clicking on it. Your turn to catch up with me. Pause the video and do that. All right, now that we have the tab stops in there, we can place our check boxes. So I'm going to click to put my cursor right next to 100K or less. I'm going to hit the tab key. Oh look, it jumped to the 2-inch mark. And now I would like to put in a checkbox control. And here's one right here. Checkbox content control. I'm going to click on that, drops it right in there. As I hover over it, it says insert a checkbox content control. This command is currently disabled because this document is opened in compatibility mode. So it goes on to tell us to use this feature: convert your document to a new file format by clicking the File tab and then clicking Convert. So if you've been watching our modules up through now, you've seen this happen already. It's relatively easy to do. We'll do just what it said. We're going to go over here to the File tab, clicking on that. And because we're in this compatibility mode, meaning the document was originally created in an older version of Word, then we do have this choice to convert it. So I'm going to click on Convert. It tells me your document will be upgraded to the newest file format. It's also going to destroy the original. Now maybe that's not a good thing in our case, because I've been trying not to destroy original documents. So here's what I would recommend doing for the moment. Let's cancel out of there. And why don't we take the document the way it is right now and save it to our finished documents folder. And then when we convert it, the problem here is it would destroy the original. So if we make a copy of it right now by using Save As to put it in our finished documents folder, then when we convert it, we are not destroying the original, and you could go back and do this whole thing again if you want to practice it later. So we're going to do 2 things here. We're going to do a Save As first, and then we'll convert it to the newer format. So that's what I'm about to do. I'm going to File and then Save As. And I want to drop it right in that same folder. Excuse me, I do not. I don't want to drop it in the same folder. I want to put it in the finished Word documents folder. We'll keep the same name. We'll click Save or hit the Enter key, since Save has the blue focus box on it. So it says we're about to upgrade to the newer file format. That's a good thing. Among other things, it'll make that checkbox content control available as I hit Enter or click OK. Right now, as I look up in the title bar, it does not say compatibility mode. So take a moment and do that. Do a Save As, make a copy of that in our finished documents folder, please. So we can see that when we did our Save As and made a copy of it in the finished items folder, it actually has updated it already. I don't see that compatibility mode up here anymore, which means we should now be able to use our checkboxes. So make sure that you have done the Save As command, put that in our finished documents folder, then come on back and let's put in a check mark right here now. So I'm putting in a checkbox right there at my insertion point. And then there aren't really any properties that I need to set up here, other than I don't want them to be able to delete the checkbox. Now, up until now, I've had you right-clicking on the right side little crescent here Some of you may have noticed there is a Properties button right up here in the Developer tab of our ribbon. So that's just another way to get to the properties. I'm going to click on that right here, and I'm looking at the properties of this checkbox. And again, about the only thing I want to change here is make sure the content control can't be deleted. And then OK that. All right, my impossible mission for us. Your mission now, should you choose to accept it, is to put in 2 more of those checkboxes and make sure they can't be deleted. So I'm trying to click down here right below it, and my cursor is in the wrong place. I need to get it over the 2-inch mark. How am I going to do that? Oh yeah, I'm going to hit the Tab key to do that. So hit the Tab key and insert a checkbox there. Protect it so it can't be deleted. Do that one more time for the more than 200K. I'll be doing that in the background while you're doing that. When you come back, we'll all have those 3 checkboxes in there. Next thing we want are 3 checkboxes for the required amenities, only we'll just put the checkboxes over here at the left side this time. So I'm going to click to put my insertion point just to the left of air conditioning. I'm going to put in a checkbox. Going to look at its properties, make sure it can't be deleted. And do that 2 more times now for the fireplace and the swimming pool. Put the video on pause and go do that. So here's my property sheet for that checkbox that I put in next to swimming pool. Again, just make sure it can't be deleted, and OK. All right, one more piece to do here. I want to have a little text box, and maybe not so little, but I would like to have a text box down here where our receptionist can add in other comments, any other things that they need to record for our agent going into the meeting with our client that we're setting up here. So I choose to click to put my insertion point below comments or other. Otherwise, when I have my text box in here, when they're typing, if they type a lot, it'll word wrap, and I don't necessarily just want it to word wrap to here, which is what would happen if I put my insertion point at that spot. Instead, I'm going to put it down here, so if they're typing, it'll word wrap all the way over here to the margins. So that's where I'm going to put in my text box. We've done one of those before. So let's go with that plain text content control, because particularly in this box, we may need our receptionist to be able to type in a sentence, hit the enter key, type in something else, hit the enter key, and only the plain text is allowed to do that. So plain text control, gonna go for the properties, make sure they can't delete it, and this time let's also check mark that we want to allow them to hit the enter key and make carriage returns. Man, that is an old term. Carriage returns comes from old style typewriters. So I'm going to allow carriage returns, and I want to make sure they can't accidentally delete this content control. And OK that. Your turn. Set those up. All right, we've basically got this thing set up the way we want it. Let's now save it in its present form. Now, earlier we did a save as, so we made a copy of it to go into our finished documents folder. Now we're simply going to update that file, so I don't need another save as, I don't need a convert or anything like that. We're just going to go up and tell it to save it. Control S, File, Save, click the little floppy disk icon up in the upper left corner that you can't see on my screen. So save the latest version of this thing. So in our next session, we're going to try this form out. So I always recommend that you build the form before you try it, and then you save it, and then you can go try it out, and then to make sure that you're saving it without a whole bunch of stuff in there, like dates filled in already, then you can always go back to the original. You can try it out, and then just not save it after you've tried it, because you've got it all set up right now. So that's what we'll be doing in the next module. It is now time to test out our form. And for this, we should step out of the design mode. So let's go up and click on design mode to step out of the design mode. And you'll see that the little placeholders and the little crescents on the ends of them have disappeared. And now we can try out our stuff. So let's go click where it says date. Click or tap to enter a date. So I click. Here's a little pull down list arrow. I'm going to click on that. Here is my date picker. So this is going to set up when is the appointment going to be with the agent. Not necessarily today. So maybe we're going to set that up for a week ahead of time, next Friday, something like that. So I'm going to click on a date, and it drops it in there. Then it says agent, choose an item. I'm going to click on that, another little pull down arrow, I'm going to choose one of these agents. Moving on, I'm going to go down and click on the next one, or maybe I'll just hit the tab key and have it jump down to the next one. It says click or tap here to enter text. So I'm going to click. I'm the receptionist right now. So I'm clicking in there, and then I'm going to start typing the name of the person who's calling. So maybe that's Ferd Burfall. Anybody who's old enough to remember Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In may remember that name, Ferd Burfall. Probably not. Probably not. I'm feeling really old right now. All right, phone number. Clicking in there. I'm going to put in their phone number, 555-1212. Maybe I need the area code in there. It's area code 510. So catch up with me there for a moment. Try those things out. All right, let's keep going. So now I have checkboxes here, and I can choose one, or I can choose more than one, or I can leave them all empty. So maybe the person I'm talking to on the phone can't really afford anything more than 200K, but they would like to look at properties that are 200K or less. And let's see, they would like to have a swimming pool. Probably not for 200K. They would like to have air conditioning. And when it gets too cold, they'd like to have a fireplace. And then there's a box down here about comments and other, and I'm going to click in there, and I can type stuff. So I was hoping to have one with a great school district, or I need at least 1,800 square feet, something like that. So feel free to type stuff in there, and if you would like, type something and then hit the enter key and type something more. That was that carriage return allowed. So how about I would like to see, I need at least 1,800 square feet, enter key. I would also like to have a kitchen. So catch up with me there. Type a little something there and maybe hit the enter key to take advantage of your multiple carriage return. All right, the only thing left to do now is to save this document. But now if I click save, I will be destroying the original that didn't have any names in it. So I'm going to want to use a save as to change the name. And so I definitely want to put this in my finished documents folder, and using save as, maybe I'd like to name it Ferd Burfall Appointment Form, because that's the name of the customer that has called. So I'm going to do a file, save as. I'm going to make sure I put it in my finished Word documents folder, and we'll call it the Ferd Burfall and his friend Fanny Farkle. Ferd Burfall Property Request Form, or whatever would be appropriate for your purposes. So that's how to use this document the first time. And then the next time somebody calls and they want to make an appointment, then our receptionist can call up the unfinished, that is the unfilled in version of our phone inquiry form, and then fill that in with new names and so forth. So let's take just a moment and do that. Let's go to the File menu and open a fresh copy of our phone inquiry form. So I'm going to go open a file. I'm going to browse. I'm going to head to my sample files folder so I can get back to the original. And I'm looking for the phone inquiry form. And because we were careful about saving it along the way, it does not have a bunch of names in it. It just has all of the different places where we can type stuff in there. So here we have one form filled in for the Ferd Burfall call, and we've saved that document for Ferd Burfall, and then I want to set it up for the next person who calls. So I'm going to go to my File tab, going to click on Open, I'm going to browse, I'm going to be careful to go to my finished Word documents folder and open up the phone inquiry form from there. And notice as you do that, it has the placeholders for entering dates and names, but not the actual names of Dizzy Gillespie and Ferd Burfall and all of that. Now, in our next session, we're going to try to protect this document so that our data entry person can't accidentally mess up anything up here. So that's what we're going to do in our next session. We're going to protect this document so that all they can do is fill in the form fields themselves. So I'm ending this session. Come on back for the next one, y'all. So we have our form all set up the way we want it, but we don't want our data entry person, our receptionist, to accidentally click up here and type somebody's name in where we don't want them typing stuff. So I would like to protect this document so that all they can do is fill in the form fields. So in order to do that, we're going to go up here to the Review tab, one and all. Let's click on Review to produce the Review ribbon. And then over here towards the right-hand side, we've got a button labeled Protect. And again, depending on the screen resolution of your screen, you might be able to see more choices under there. In my case, I have to click the little pull-down arrow. And then I get a couple of choices here: block authors, which is grayed out, and restrict editing, which is what I want to do. Limit how much others can edit and format in this document. So I'm going to go click on Restrict Editing, and that opens up a little window pane over here at the side. So catch up with me, put the video on pause. I had gone up here to the Review tab, I clicked on Protect, I clicked on Restrict Editing, and that opened up this little task panel over here at the right-hand side. So pause the video, join me there. So I'm going to widen this left side panel just a little bit. There's this little border here that you can grab, get a two-headed arrow and widen it out a little bit. So I've got several ways that I can protect this thing. Limit formatting to a selection of styles. No, that's not quite what I want to do here. Allow only this type of editing to the document, and then there's a little list arrow. So I'm going to say, all right, allow only this type of editing, and if I just stop right there, then they won't be able to make any changes to it at all. I've just made it a read-only document. Now, for some kind of documents, maybe that's what I want, but in this case, I need my receptionist to be able to fill it in. So I'm going to click in the box that says no changes, and then I see several other choices in there. Let me zoom in on them. So tracked changes, we'll be talking about track changes in a few minutes here, not in this particular session. Limit them to only being able to add comments. Well, we haven't talked about comments yet either, but here's a great choice right here. Limit them to only filling in forms. That would be perfect for this one. So that's what we're going to choose. Allow only this type of editing, and this type is going to be filling in the forms. And then the next thing I'll do is click Yes, start enforcing the protection. So catch up with me there. Allow only this type of editing, filling in forms. All right, it's time for us to start enforcing protection. When we do that, you'll see a little window here that would allow you to enter a password. And as you type in the password, you're just going to see dots. So like most times when you're filling in a password, when you're setting up a password at least, you would have to type it twice. Now, what's the worst part about putting in a password on anything? Yeah, it's remembering your own password. And then I got to get on the internet and try to find some 12-year-old who knows how to get around passwords or something like that. So for this first one, I'm not actually going to enter a password. If you would like to try it, what the heck, I'm going to put in a password. I'll put it way too simple. I would never do this one in real life. I'm going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice you can't see those characters, you just see the dots. And that's largely why in an instant like this, they make you re-enter it to make sure you typed it the way you thought you typed it. And if I don't type it the same way the second time, I try to click on OK. It says, nope, gotta go back and do that. They didn't match. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the second one, George Washington. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. I click OK. This time it has no complaints. And sometimes I need to be able to get in here and make edits to the form. Maybe I did something wrong, or I'm realizing I need to add another field that I had never thought of. So eventually I would like to be able to stop the protection. And when I do that, it'll ask me for the password and so forth. Now, when our receptionist opens this document, I don't want the receptionist to see this little panel here. So I'm going to close that. And then I'm pretty much ready to save this. Now, let's just see it in action. If I try to go over here and click and phone and type something, it won't let me. It'll let me type stuff in the form fields, but that's all. I'm going to tap the backspace key and take that stuff out of there, and then click elsewhere so that it becomes blank again. So that's what we just protected. So catch up with me, finish protecting that, put in a password if you would like. So we're going to do one more thing to this, but put the video on pause and catch up with me on that part. So, all right, one last thing that I would like to add to this form to make it easier for my receptionist to use is when somebody calls on the phone, I don't want the receptionist to have to be stumbling around and going into this folder and grabbing their phone inquiry form. I would like to make it really easy to have the phone inquiry form pop up by saving it as a template. Now, those of you who have been looking at earlier lessons, we talked a bit about saving as a template, and it is actually a save as command. So that's what we're going to walk through right now, saving this form as a template. And that way, all the receptionist has to do is say, I'd like to make a new document. The templates appear. They choose the personal templates, and then they open the phone inquiry form because they won't have to look through a whole lot of documents that way. So here I go, saving this thing as a template. File menu, Save As, and I want to put it in my, well, I don't have to decide where to put it. So far I'm going to browse, and then down here it says it's ready to save this as a Word document. It also says it's about to save it in the finished Word documents, but that's going to change. So right down here in the bottom, when I say Save As Type, I'm going to switch it to a Word template. Then you'll notice it switches folders up here just automatically so that you will be putting this form in your custom Office templates. Now this one, the rejection letter, that came from an earlier lesson here. So that's going to be in my personal templates. And then this one, the new phone inquiry form as a blank that's protected so they can't type where we don't want them to be able to type, is now going to become a template. So I'm going to finish that off by clicking Save. Your turn to do that. So that was File, Save As, click Browse. It doesn't really matter what folder you tell it to put it in. And then down here where you say Save It as a Word template, it will automatically put it in this magic folder. So I'm going to cancel out of there. You go catch up with me, save that thing as a template, and then we'll see how to try it out. So let's take a moment and close all the open documents. All right, now I am the receptionist and the phone rings and I'm talking to this person and they would like to make an appointment with one of our real estate agents here. So I'm going to open up Microsoft Word and it offers templates, but I don't see my personal template because I'm looking at the featured templates right now. To get to my personal templates, I need to go here, click on Personal, and then I'm going to open up my phone inquiry form. And it's ready to rock. And all I can do is fill in the fields. I am not allowed to change anything else because I've protected the document. And we can move from field to field to field as the receptionist and fill in what we need. So, your turn to do that. You're going to do a Save As. You're going to save it as a template. And then, here we are trying it out. We closed Word, phone rings, receptionist needs that template. She opens Word, goes to the personal templates, and she's in business. I don't know why I'm demanding that the receptionist be a woman. Just slipped into that when maybe I shouldn't have. So that's the ins and outs of creating a form, protecting the form, turning it into a template that's easy to find and easy to use. In our next session, we're going to switch gears totally. We're going to start talking about group writing tools. Sometimes I call it the industrial writing tools. Where we've got several people working on the same document, whether it is sending it around by email, or maybe we're putting it on the corporate SkyDrive, or maybe we're putting it in the SharePoint. We're not going to actually be doing that part just yet, but we're going to talk about how can we work together and make comments about a document and make changes that are tracked so that somebody can decide, do we want to keep these changes or reject them? So we're going to see several different levels of what I call industrial writing tools, starting in the next session. So for the moment, this is Dan McAllister signing off, finished talking about interactive forms. Our next several sessions here in Module 5 are going to be about reviewing tools, tools used for reviewing documents. So we'll start out with simple ones and then forward into more industrial strength. Group writing tools, sometimes I call them. So let's go get a practice file. I would like to open a file named Edit and Track Changes. So I'm going to go do that. You put the video on pause, do that as well. Again, that file is named Edit and Track Changes. So I'm scrolling down through my Word sample files, Edit and Track Changes, and I'm going to enable editing. All right, we're back talking about that company, Burke Properties. the real estate agents. So we're working through this document, and before we put it out on our website or whatever we're going to do with it, we need to run it by other people in the department. Maybe we need to run it by the legal department, make sure we're not putting anything in there that we, promises we can't keep. Need to run it by the boss once we've got the thing kind of worked out. So these will be group writing tools, and they may be that we're emailing a document around and one person makes changes and then is supposed to send it on down the chain to the next person, to the next person. Or it may be that we're storing it on the cloud somewhere. So we're going to start out with maybe the easiest one, called the highlighter tool. And it's available here under the home ribbon. This is it right here, the highlighter tool. And there's a couple of ways to use it. So here comes the first way. So I'm looking through this document that maybe somebody else wrote, and I want to look for things that need to be changed. And so maybe we want to say, instead of our professionals, maybe we should change that to some other word. So I'm going to, the first way I'm going to use my highlighter is I'm going to select a word, and then I'm going to go use the highlighter tool. Now it's available here in my quick formatting toolbar, or it's available up here in the font group under the Home tab. I'm going to click on the little pull down arrow. I see that there is a limited number of colors for my highlighter, and maybe I'll start with the yeller. So maybe within our company we have agreed ahead of time that anything marked in yellow is something we suggest be changed, and anything highlighted in red is something that we want to get rid of. So that was my first way to highlight something, dragging across a word and then clicking on the highlighter to highlight it. Here comes my second way. In this case, I'm not going to have anything pre-selected. I'm going to go up here and click on the pull down arrow for the different highlighter colors, and maybe I'll go with the fire engine red this time. And now as I move my mouse into the text, my mouse arrow has changed to an I-beam with a little picture of a highlighter. It's basically that symbol right there has taken over my mouse. I guess you can't see it when I use my third-party zooming software. So now that I have this in my hand, anything I paint with it now will turn red. So maybe I'm thinking we need to take this sentence out of here for whatever reason. Our relocation team is committed to blah, blah, blah. So with this highlighter in my hand, I am now dragging to select maybe that sentence, and when I let go, oh look, it turns red. And then anything else that I want totally removed, like maybe I don't need to refer to the abbreviation of the national referral roster. So I'm thinking, hey, we'll take that out of there as well. And I'm marking things that need to be removed. Now, either I have to go into the email that this is attached to, where I'm sending it to the next person, and explain to them why I've highlighted these things. Or again, maybe we have all decided ahead of time what each color stands for. Now, eventually, I've got this thing in my hand, and everything I touch with it is turning red. And then I'm realizing, oh, I marked a couple of things that I wish I hadn't marked. I would like to remove the highlighter from those. Well, I'm going to go back up here and click on the pull-down arrow for my highlighter, and you notice there is one called Stop Highlighting. All that means is the next time I select something, it's not going to turn red. But that didn't get rid of the redness that I already have in there. To get rid of the redness that I already have, I'm going to go back up to my highlighter tool, and I'm going to choose the No Color highlighter, and then I can use it to drag across things to remove the highlighting. And I don't have to just drag across the little thing there. I can drag like this to choose a big area to unhighlight, essentially, is what that does. And then now I got to try to figure out how to get rid of the highlighter tool. I can either go up here and click on it to turn it off, or, as we talked about in an earlier lesson when I've got the Format Painter brush turned on, I can tap the Escape key to turn off the Format Painter brush or the highlighter tool. So I'm going to tap the Escape key right now. All right, so I would like you to try that. And it doesn't have to be the exact same words that I marked in here, but I would like you to try out that highlighter, please. So the first way was you select text first, and then you click the highlighter and choose the color. The second way is you don't select any text first, you choose the color of the highlighter, and then you have the highlighter in your hand, and you can mark multiple things with it. And then to stop highlighting, you can tap the Escape key, or you can choose Stop Highlighting, or to then unhighlight something that's already highlighted, go up there and choose the No Color highlighter and drag across the thing that was highlighted, and it won't be highlighted anymore. So try that out. Try out our highlighter, everybody. Put the video on pause and try that bad boy out. All right, moving up the ladder of my industrial strength review tools, next thing I would like to talk about is adding comments. Now, comments in one way is a little bit like a highlighter with a sticky note attached. And when a comment has been added into a document, you will see a little speech balloon over at the side here. So I did not add the comment that you're seeing here. It was in the document when we opened it. So I'd like you to watch me here. I'm going to go over and click on the little speech balloon. As I hover, it says See Comments. As I click on it, it highlights the area that the comment is about. And then it's really going to be hard for you to read what's going on down here. I'll zoom in on it, but it'll be easier to read it on your own screen when you're doing it. So it's got the initials of somebody who made this comment. And it says, I think we should delete this sentence and add information explaining our customer commitment. So that one's better than just the highlighter because it explains why you highlighted it, essentially. So try that out. Go over and click on the little speech balloon and see what the comment says, and then we'll talk about, so how could we add comments of our own? Pause the video, check out the comment. All right, so now to talk about how could we add a comment of our own, maybe rather than highlight this thing in red to signify that we should get rid of it, maybe I'm going to unhighlight it. So I'm going to go up and get my no color highlighter, drag over that thing so it's not highlighted anymore, and then I'll add a comment to it. So adding the comments will take place under the Review tab. So I'm going to go up here and click on the Review tab, and I saw a choice in here about Add a New Comment. So first I should select the thing that I'm commenting on. And again, maybe that's this thing about our relocation team is committed, etc., etc. Right now I've still got the highlighter in my hand, so I'm going to tap the Escape key to get rid of that. And instead, I'm going to insert a new comment. So I go up and I click on New Comment. Actually, I should do that in a slightly different order. I should select the text that I want to comment on, then I'm going to go up here and click on New Comment. And you'll see that it kind of highlights it here. And then over here on the left-hand side, it says, all right, this is Dan Mack making a comment here. And I'm going to enter that we should remove this sentence. And I'm not necessarily suggesting anything to put in its place, but that's my comment. And notice it has my name attached to that. So any place where comments have been added, you will see them over here in this left side comments pane. And if I click on one of them, it'll actually go to the place where that comment was made. And I can see what the comment is, or I can go over and click on the little speech balloon and see what the comment is over there. So that's our second level of the industrial review tools, is comments. So again, you don't have to make the comments in the same exact place I did, but try it out. You select text first, go to the Review tab, click on New Comment. That will open up the pane over here, and you can type in your comment, and your name will be attached to that. Pause the video and try out the comments. So I'm going to close the revisions pane so that I can see the document again. And then when I click away, then any place where we've made comments, you should see the little speech balloons over there. I'd like to add a couple of things about the comments here before I move on. Maybe I'd like to set it up so that I don't have to go click on this little speech balloon to actually see the comment. So there is a button up here in the review section, in the comment section of the review ribbon, that says Show the Comments. And if I click on that, then it opens up a little side panel here to show the various comments. And then if I turn that off, it hides them again, and all I see is the speech balloon. Now, sometimes I'm showing those comments, or I'm going in and clicking on the speech balloons to see the comments. So let's say that somebody's looking through the comments and they disagree with one of them, and they'd like to make a comment about that comment, like, oh, I disagree, I think we should do this instead. So one of the ways to do that is go click in the speech balloon, and then there's a little button right here. And if I click on that, it opens up a comment about the comment. And so now this is me making a comment about their comment to say, make sure all the current affiliations are included. And then maybe I've got a suggestion of what affiliations we're talking about, where I could say, don't forget the Justice League of America accreditation. So now I've made a comment about the comment. And if I choose to show the comments, then out here I will see both of them. Here's the original comment, and then here's a comment about the comment. That's different than these two. These two was one comment about this section and one comment about that section. They're not about the same thing. Therefore, the second one isn't indented the way this one is. This indentation signifies that this is a comment about that comment. The non-indentation here means those are two separate comments that are collinear, shall we say. They're about something on the same lines as each other. Also, eventually, if I need to delete, maybe I put in a comment and I realize, oh, that's not really right. I want to remove my own comment. You can actually remove somebody else's comment this way as well, but I'm going to be nice. I'm going to talk about removing my own comment. I'm going to click on my comment, and then I can go up here and delete it. So now it's not got the little highlighter in there, and it's not got my little speech balloon, and it's not showing it over here in the side pane about showing the comments, and I'm going to hide them again. So that's how you can remove comments, hopefully your own, or make comments on other people's comments, and then somebody gets to decide which of you is right. So that's our second level of industrial review tools. First was the highlighter, second is the comments. In the next section, I'm going to climb the ladder to the next level of the industrial review tools called tracking changes. So come on back and check that one out, everybody. Tracking changes comes next. We've been talking about the first couple of levels of what I call the industrial writing review tools. That was the highlights and the comments. What I'd like to talk about next is we're sending this document around and people want to suggest changes, but instead of just making comments about the changes, maybe they could actually make the change themselves. But I, as the owner of the document, would like to know what it used to be and where they made a change. Right now, imagine we're sending this thing around and somebody looks at this and they want to change one of these words here. Burke Properties is a privately owned company. Maybe I want to change that to corporation. And right now, somebody can go in there right now and get rid of the word company, and I won't know that. And they can fill in the word corporation. And I, as the owner of this document, don't know that somebody just made that change. So wouldn't it be handy if there was some way that I could keep track of what things used to say and what they've been changed to, and eventually either myself or maybe there's going to be a committee that makes these choices can decide, do I want to keep the original or do we want to keep the change that's been made? So that's called tracked changes. First thing I'm going to do is undo that thing I just did, so a couple of Control-Z's to put the word back in there. And then let's see how this would act differently if I turn on this button right up here called Track Changes. So I'm going to click on that to turn it on. And then I'm going to go up and make another change here. So I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm going to select the word company and I'm going to delete it. I'm tapping the delete key right now. And I see a little red marker over here. And then I'm going to add another word instead. How about corporation? And another little space there. Okay, so right now the only clue that I have that anybody made a change is this little red marker over here. And if I hover over that red marker, it says show tracked changes. And when I click on it, I can actually see two things right in there. Let me zoom in with my third-party zooming software. I can see a strike through on the old word that used to be there, and then I can see an underscore under the thing that's been added in there. And in fact, if I hover over it, I can see who made that change and when. That's going to be really handy for one of these kind of documents that we're sending around, getting everybody's opinion on. Instead of just making comments, they can actually make the change, but they can't do it in a way that I can't tell they did it. Unless they go turn off the button called Track Changes. Well, there is something we can do about that. I'm not necessarily going to do it right now. For the moment, I'm going to turn off Track Changes. You're just going to watch here for a second. And you may remember that when we protected our document, restrict editing, allow only this type of editing, there is a choice in there about only allow them to make tracked changes. So this is probably something I would do before I send the document around to everybody. Set it up here so all they can do is put in track changes, and then maybe put in a password so that they can't necessarily remove that restricted editing. So I'm not going to do that right now, but very often that would be the next step I would take, is to set this thing up so all they can do is make track changes, and that way they can't go in and turn off the track changes button, maybe without knowing the password. So I'm just going to step out of that for a moment. I'm not going to fulfill that, but I just wanted to mention that that's available. And then if I want to put that back so that it's not cluttering up my screen with all of this stuff just yet, I can go up here where it says All Markup and click on a little pull down arrow and change it to something called Simple Markup, which was the original setting. That's the one that just makes a little red mark over there, and somebody has to know that they go hover over the red mark to be able to see the track changes. Okay, so I still want the track changes turned on. So it's your turn to do that. Turn on the track changes, go in and select a word, delete it, and then type another word in its place. Make sure you leave spaces where they're supposed to be left around the words. And then to see what the changes look like, you can go click on this little red marker to show the track changes. That changes it from simple markup to all markup. And then I can actually see strike throughs for things that have been removed and underscores for things that have been added. And as you hover, you should be able to see your name in there. All right, so put the video on pause, catch me up with the track changes. So it made one marking in here for the word you got rid of and another marking for the word that you added. And we did that in 2 steps. But you don't have to do it in 2 steps. You could actually do it in 1. So for example, maybe I want to change these words that say the network to say this association. So this time, instead of selecting it and deleting it and then typing it, I'm just going to select it and type right over top of it. So I'm replacing the network with this association. And because I have the all markup setting, I can actually see what I just did. I didn't do it in 2 steps. I didn't delete this in 1 step and then add this in another step, but notice it treated it as though I had. And the reason it does that is eventually somebody has to come in and decide, do we like the fact that they deleted this? If not, I'll keep it around. Do we like the fact that they added this? If so, I'll keep it around, or in either case, I can get rid of it. So take a moment and do that. And again, it doesn't have to be done in exactly the same place I'm doing it, but if you want, feel free to do what I did there. So that was just our next level of track changes. We don't have to do it in 2 steps. You can do it in 1 step. It treats it as 2 steps. So put the video on pause and do another track change, maybe a couple of them somewhere. So that's how to put in tracked changes. And I'd also like to make a little notification about this area right up here where it says all markup. And earlier we saw that you could have something called simple markup, where you just see the red marks, but you don't actually see the change. I should mention a couple other choices up there. So here's what all markup looked like. Now when you show all markup, it does a couple of things. For the track changes, we see the strike throughs and the insertions with the underscores. Another thing I see over here is something about a comment. So here was a word that was highlighted, and then right next to that I see these little letters here, DM3. That's who made that comment. Now if I go with simple markup, then I don't see the track changes, and I also don't see like who made the comment about Nationwide. If I hover over it, all of a sudden it changes color and I see, oh, there's a comment there. I might stumble across that kind of by mistake. Or if I go out here and actually click on the speech balloon, then we've seen this part before. So when I'm telling it to show all markup, not only does it show me the stuff about track changes, but it shows me the comments and who made them without me having to look over here in the side panel. But there's a couple other choices under this pull-down list, and I've actually seen people get in trouble with this. So the real way that this is used is that in the end, somebody, or maybe more than one somebody, has to go through and make choices about which of these things are we keeping, which of these things are we throwing away. Maybe I want to get rid of the comments. We've made decisions about the comments, whether we agree with them or not agree with them, and so forth. And then we send this thing out to the client. I'm afraid I've heard this story about 5 or 6 times now from my various students. There's a couple of choices up here. One of them says no markup. So right now, notice it used to say the network, now it's ready to say this association. If I switch over here to no markup, then I can see the change. I can't see the original anymore. And I can't see any notification that any track changes have happened. No little red marks over here, no little comments over here. Another choice up there, let me go back with my all markup. So I'm reminding you again, these were the original words and this was the suggested change. If I go up here and I choose to show original, then I see the words the network, and I don't see that any change has been suggested in there at all. So here's the nasty story I've heard several times. We sent this document to the client, and then about 3 days later we got an email coming back saying, I'm looking at that document you sent me. What's that thing about don't tell the client we're raising the price by 10%? The stuff was still in there. Nobody had actually gone in and made choices about what to keep and what to throw away. So that will be our next subject of discussion. How do we go in once the changes have been made and tracked and decide what to keep and what to throw away without getting ourselves into this big problem? So I'm going to go back there and turn on the all markup so we can see the most that's available about what's going on there. And in our next session, we will come back and talk about, so how do we make the decisions about the changes that have been tracked? In the last session, we talked about how to make tracked changes. And since I ended that last session, I made a couple more changes in here just to have 4 or 5 of them to talk about. And again, yours don't have to be in the same place. But why don't I take a moment and just add 2 or 3 more of those track changes? Totally up to you where to do them. So put the video on pause, go make a couple more of those track changes, please, so we have a little more to talk about. So now this document has gone around to all of these people, and it's finally come back to me, the person in charge of the document, and now I have to go in there and be the decider. I need to make the choices about what to keep and what to throw away. Or again, maybe we've got a little committee that's going to get together and do this, be all in the same room and make these choices. So the first thing I need to do is turn off the track changes so that as I make changes to this, they won't be tracked anymore. I want to be able to make changes and throw things away and keep things and not have it just tracking the fact that I'm still doing that. So I'm going to turn off the button for track changes. I still see the track changes. It's just that when I make changes in here about keeping a word or throwing it away, it won't be just tracked again. So I'm going up there and turning off the track changes button. And now I'm the decider. So I'm going to go through these and decide, do I like the original, do I like the change, or do I want to keep the original, and so forth. So let's see, it was originally the word company, now it says corporation. Maybe I want to get rid of corporation and keep the company part. So I'm hovering over the word company, it tells me that somebody has deleted that, tells me when, and so forth. And one of the ways I can make this choice is to right-click on it. And then I can accept the deletion or reject the deletion. Kind of nice that it tells me what I'm accepting or rejecting. Although you might see that this thing that has popped up doesn't have a title bar. I can't move it out of the way. So some people find that a little bit irritating. But I'm talking about the word company, and they're suggesting that it be deleted. I'm going to say, I reject thy deletion. So I click on reject deletion. So now it's no longer red. But realize that rejecting the deletion doesn't automatically accept the insertion. So you actually have to make choices about both of these. So I am right-clicking on corporation, which is a suggested insertion, and I'm going to say I reject that. So you had to make 2 separate choices about that. So I got another one here, the network versus this association. Maybe in this case I like the insertion, I don't want to keep the word network. So I'm going to right-click on that, and it says, do you accept this deletion or reject the deletion? I'm going to say, I accept the deletion. I don't like that choice there. And this is where things can get a little bit weird. What am I accepting? What am I rejecting? It takes a little bit of practice to kind of keep that together in your head. So I'm going to say the original words was the network. I don't like those. The suggestion is to delete them. I'm going to accept the deletion. And then as a separate step, I have to go in here and also accept the insertion. Now I've got another thing going on here about a comment. So there's not a choice about accept a comment. If I right-click on that comment, there's no choice in here about accepting it. There's a choice about deleting it. That doesn't mean it's going to delete the word, it just deletes the comment. So I can click on that there. delete that comment. So the words are still in there. There was no actual change made there. That was only a comment before we had the track changes turned on. All right, so take a minute and do that for just a couple of your choices. Go in there and accept and delete. Don't do all of them. I've got another thing I want to do with some other ones that I've added down here. So hopefully you'll still have a couple of them to work on after you play with that for a second. So catch up with me and practice that part about accepting the insertion or rejecting the insertion and all of that. And then come on back and I'll show you another way to make those choices. The next thing I'd like to show you is something called opening up the reviewing pane. Here's a button for it. This is not P-A-I-N, this is a cutesy name for part of a window, a P-A-N-E. So I'm going to click on reviewing pane, and automatically it puts one over to the side here. Let me just click on that again to hide it, and then I notice there's a pull-down arrow, and if I clicked on the pull-down arrow, I would have two choices about reviewing pane vertical versus horizontal. If I click on reviewing pane horizontal, it makes the division of the two windows horizontal, and it appears down below. Most people that I've dealt with, they would rather have it over at the side so they can see more of the document. So in this case, I'm going to say, no, I would like the reviewing pane to be placed in here with a vertical divider line, and that way I can see a little more of the document. So take a moment and do that. Put our video on pause, and go up there and maybe click the pull-down arrow for the reviewing pane and choose vertical. Actually, if you're going to choose vertical, you can just click the original button because the default setting was vertical. But open up that reviewing pane, please. So now to use the reviewing pane, I'm going to click over here in one of the comments. It goes and finds that part. In this case, it's that comment right there. Notice I've got choices about things deleted, inserted, deleted, or commented upon. So all of those things are over in my revisions pane. So it's not about am I removing the word services or adding the word services. It's that I've looked at the comment and then I went in and either did what they said, deleted that sentence and added more information explaining our customer commitment, or I disagree with them. I don't think we need to do that. All I want to do is get rid of the comment itself. So I can right click on it over here and delete that comment. So again, I haven't deleted any words. That wasn't a track change. That was just a comment. And then when I go click on the next one, Dan Mac deleted, it will go find that part. And so you just work your way through this panel. And one of the advantages of this is I don't have to keep going through the document by eyeball. Where was the next comment? Where was the next comment? Although there are actually some choices up here about find the next comment and so forth. I like working in this panel over here because once I'm done working in this panel, I'm done making all my choices. So let's see. Relocation can be traumatic. So maybe I want to keep that original word and get rid of the suggested insertion. So for the deletion of traumatic, I'm going to say I reject that deletion. And for the word difficult, I right click and I reject that insertion. Then I've only got one more here. Our professionals are all members of. And I've got one about a person or. They have deleted something there. And I'm going to accept that deletion. All right. So turn that on, go through and make your choices about what to keep and what to throw away. Yours will be slightly different than mine. And then when you're done, feel free to close that panel. And let's see, I've got a highlighter here. This was not a comment. This was not a track change. So if I decide, all right, I disagree with the fact that somebody was suggesting we get rid of the word professionals, and I just want to get rid of the highlighter. It's been a while since we did that in an earlier session, but here was how we did it. We went to the Home tab. We chose the No Color highlight and just drag across that area. And you've removed the highlight. And then I want to turn off the highlighter either by clicking on it or tapping the Escape key to get rid of it. All right, so go and work in that left side panel and work your way through the track changes. And then when you're all done, why don't we save this document? Let's make sure we're going to save it into the Finished Documents folder, though. So that's what I'm going to do while you guys catch up with me. So make those choices. And then let's do a save as and make sure we put this in our Finished Documents folder, everybody. In our previous lesson, we were talking about tracked changes in a single document. One document that's been shared among several people. They've made comments, they've made highlights, they've made track change insertions, track change deletions. Somebody had to go in and make choices in the end about what things to keep and what things to pitch. Well, in this case, we're not talking about one document that's gone around. We're talking about multiple versions of the same document where they didn't necessarily see the other people's changes. So what we're going to look at is combining two versions of a document to try to get the one best document out of all of the different things that are in the two different documents. So in the end, this is going to look very much like track changes, but setting it up in the initial setting is going to look much different. So here we go. Let's go open a file named Lee Letter. This is a letter to one of our Burke Properties customers, Miss Gina Lee. So let's go open up the Lee Letter. You'll be doing it. I'll be doing that at the same time. Put our video on pause and go open up the Lee Letter, please. So here is our letter to Miss Gina Lee. And then I want to combine this with another letter. And this is going to happen under the Review tab as well. We were under the Review tab doing track changes. Things are going to be fairly similar here eventually, but it's different at the beginning. So come with me to the Review tab, and then we're going to go over here to a pull-down list that says Compare. And what I would like to do is actually combine revisions from multiple authors into a single document, as it says there. So I'm going to click on that. Opens up this little dialog window. Come do that with me. So you're clicking the pull-down arrow labeled Compare, and on the pull-down list, choose Combine. All right, now I see two of these boxes, one of them labeled Original Document, one of them called Revised Document. That worries some people the first time they see it. It turns out it won't matter because we're going to combine them into a third document. And to actually see those choices, I'm going to come over here and click on More, and I would like you to do the same. Go click on More. Put the video on pause, click on More. All right, so now you can see some things going on down here at the bottom as to what things it's going to compare. Moves, comments, formatting, tables, etc. But one of the reasons I'm bringing you here is because of stuff going on down here at the bottom. It says show the changes in, and by default, it's going to put them in a new document. So where I saw the labels that said original document and revised document, just think of those as document 1 and document 2, because we're actually going to combine them into a new document. That's the default setting, and I totally recommend that. So what we need to do now is choose the documents that we're going to be combining. So I'm clicking on the little pull-down arrow here, and I'm scrolling down through a list of documents that I have had open recently. And I'm looking for one called Lee Letter. Now, that may be on my list, it may not be. And if it's not, you can go over here and click on this little browsing folder and navigate to your Word sample files. And we'll say, all right, so one of them is going to be this Lee Letter. Even though I have it open already, I have to tell it, all right, that's one of the documents I'm going to combine. So I'm choosing Lee Letter as document A. And then let's go over and use a little folder. And we're going to compare that to a document named Beth. Beth. Double clicking on that one. All right, so I see a couple of things here. Label unmarked changes with somebody's name and somebody else's name here. That's only going to show up in the track changes panel in a minute. So we are about to create a brand new document by combining these two. So catch up with me. We want Lee Letter on the left and Beth on the right. And with those chosen, click on OK. So the left 2/3 of this window look very much like track changes. The right third of this window has little previews of the two documents that we are combining. So I can scroll up and down in the right-hand side and read one of them, scroll up and down on the other side, read the other one. Under certain circumstances, they will actually kind of scroll together, you can see. Mostly when I scroll in the second one, but not necessarily the first one. And then over here, I have things that are underlined and things that are struck through. Gee, that looks awfully familiar. And over here, I have the revisions panel. So from here on, it's just the same as track changes. Setting it up originally, took some extra steps there, but now it's basically track changes and you're the decider. So it says one of them changed the default paragraph font. I'm going to say I don't really care about that. I'm just going to right-click on that one, and I'm going to reject that change. Just looking at these, I can't really tell what the original paragraph font was anyway. So now it says, all right, this guy inserted the word Gina. I can see that here. Originally, one of them said Dear Miss Lee, right there. And then one of them said, Dear Miss Gina Lee. And so it's showing me the difference here, showing the word Gina. And it's up to me whether I like that or not. Maybe I'll say I accept that insertion. So I can go and do just like I did in track changes. Right-click over here, accept the insertion. And now it'll say Miss Gina Lee. And I'm not going to make you go through the rest of this thing. We've already kind of talked about that in the track changes. Remember, everything that's a strike through is a suggested deletion. Everything that is underscore is a suggested insertion. And then when you get done with this, you will simply save it. So I'm going to take just a second and make some choices in here. You do the same. Put the video on pause and make some choices. We might not wind up with exactly the same choices, but don't worry about that too far. We're just talking about the method here. Put the video on pause and make some choices about what you're going to keep and what you're going to throw away. So there were a couple places on that left side where it said so-and-so inserted, and then it looked like just blank stuff. That was maybe 4 blank lines. So that was what you were accepting and rejecting in there. And there were some things in there about tab stops. I told it to reject those. I couldn't just go, scrolling through, eyeballing, I couldn't really see what that was about, especially when I don't really have any tab keys in there for the tab stops. All right, so here is my finished document right now, and I am ready to do a Save As command. And of course, I want to put it in my Finished Documents folder. Didn't really have to go to this window for that. And then as far as its name, maybe we'll call it Final Lee Letter. Being upgraded to the newest file format. Wonderful. So that's how to combine 2 similar documents into one finished document. Our next several lessons are going to be about inserting references in a document. That means I'm going to insert something into a document that maybe refers to another part of the document, making it easier to navigate and find things that I'm looking for. So the first method of references is going to be inserting a table of contents. And we're going to start out with a document named Bookmarks. So put the video on pause and go open a document named Bookmarks. I'll be doing the same thing and we'll join together once you have that file up. So open a file named Bookmarks, please. So as you have opened the document, you can see a place where we're going to put in the table of contents. It will go right below this title. And let's see the contents that it's going to refer to. So I'm scrolling down a little bit. Oh, okay, it seems to be a fiscal report to our stockholders. Strategies for the future, how things are going financially so far. What's expected in the future, how can we take advantage of things that are coming up. Positioning for long-term growth, etc. Also, I see little places where letters have been changed from normal letters to something else. So if I click here where it says Positioning for Long-Term Growth, if I'm looking under the Home ribbon, I can see that that's a Heading 1 style. If I click on Investment, I can see that's a Heading 2 style. And from our previous lessons, you might remember that a heading is a combination of fonts and formatting and special effects. So for example, this one called Heading 1 seems to be Arial font, 16 points, bold. When I click on Investment, that Heading 2 seems to be Arial font, 14 point, bold, and italic. And when I click on an Investment in Client Service, that's to be a Heading 3, which is Arial 12-point font and bold. And then when I click in just a normal document, and the normal text in a document, I can see if I go to my quick styles up here, I can see that that text is called normal. And so when I click in the middle of that, I can see that it's Times New Roman 12-point font. Okay, so we've seen Heading 1, Heading 2, Heading 3, and normal text. I'm going to use my Control Home to go back up to the top of that document. Control and Home. So I would like to put the table of contents right under this title. First thing I think we should do is maybe look at stuff going on in the background. I've got a bunch of white space here. What happened there? Is that like 80 enter keys? Or is it an inserted page break? Or did they start a new section, or just what? In order to be able to look in the background like that, I can go to the Home tab and click on this little button that's supposed to look like an old school paragraph mark. I told you earlier in a lesson that it's called a pilcrow, and I'm going to click on the pilcrow, and now I can see what's going on in the background here. So this labeled table of contents is actually normal text that's just been hand formatted to be 20-point size and bold and italic. It doesn't say that that's a heading 1 or anything like that. So I'm going to click to put my cursor right at the end of that line, and I'm going to hit the Enter key to start a new line, which kicks down my section break. Yes, you can read that on your screen right there. Section break, next page break. So from earlier discussions, we saw there was something called a page break that wouldn't start a new section, or there was also a way to insert a page that was also a section break. And that's what's gone on here. So when I clicked at the end of that line and hit the Enter key, it assumes I want my next line to be just like that first one. Bold and italic and 20-point font and centered. That is not what I want. I would like that section to have the same style as the regular text down below. So let's see. First of all, I need to left align it by hand. So right up here in the paragraph group are my alignment buttons. And right now, these words are, or this placeholder where I'm going to have words, is centered. So I'm going to make that left aligned by clicking here, and I'd like you to do the same. So make that left aligned. Put the video on pause, catch up with me. So I had clicked at the end of the title up there, I hit the Enter key, it made another centered one. I said no, make it left aligned. So do that much. All right, and then I said the next thing I wanted to do was make the text below that look just like this text here. Oh, if there were only a way that I could quickly make that text up there look just like this text here. Yeah, there is a way to do it. It's been a while since we talked about it. It was called the Format Painter brush, and it's found right over here. That's my Format Painter brush right there. So if you were here when we discussed how to use this earlier, or even if you weren't, here's how you use it. So you click in an area that's got the formatting that you like, and then you click on the Format Painter brush, and then you move to the place you'd like to apply that formatting to. I can either Control Home or just scroll up. And so now I've got the Format Painter brush in my hand. I'm going to use it to click on this pilcrow, and it is now Times New Roman 12-point font. So take a moment and do that. Again, we scrolled down, we clicked in this area that has the formatting that I want to use for my table of contents, sucked up that formatting into the Format Painter brush, and applied it to the new line that we had created right below the label that says Table of Contents. All right, put the video on pause and do that. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm going to hide my pilcrows now. And it's time to see how to put in our first version of a table of contents. So I'm going to go up here to the References tab, which produces the References ribbon that has several things we're going to use in the next several lessons. But right now, I want to concentrate on this guy, this very first button that says Table of Contents. So you might want to hover over that and kind of read what it says. You're not going to be able to read it on my screen. But one of the things that it says is text using a heading style will be included automatically. All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to take advantage of those heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s. I'm going to click on the button labeled Table of Contents, and I'll see a couple of pre-created ones available right out of the box, Automatic Table 1, Automatic Table 2. They actually are almost exactly the same as each other, with the exception of what the label is going to see at the top. Do I want it to say Contents? Do I want it to say Table of Contents? Now, I've actually got a thing up there already that says Table of Contents, so the second thing might get in the way, but hang in there. So I'm going to go with level 1 here with Automatic Table of Contents number 1, and when I click on that, there it comes, my Automatic Table of Contents. So why don't you do that? Got your cursor, your insertion point, flashing over at the left-hand side. So go to your References tab to produce the References ribbon. Go over here, click on Table of Contents, and apply Automatic Table 1. Please give it a shot. Put the video on pause. So that's how to insert the table of contents in the first place, to take advantage of the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s, and to make a little update to it. In our next lesson, we're going to talk about how could I change the look of the table of contents itself. So I'm ending this session. We'll go start the next one in just a moment, as long as you're going to hang around here. In our previous lesson, we saw how to insert a table of contents that takes advantage of heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3 styles and automatically builds the table of contents from that. But now maybe what I'd like to do is customize this table of contents to change its look a little bit. Right now, the way I can tell the difference between the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s is how much it's indented. Maybe I would like to make the heading 1s look a little bit different in the table of contents. Make the heading 2s look a little bit different here in the table of contents itself. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to my References tab where I can get to the Table of Contents button. I'm going to click on the Table of Contents button, and then way down here towards the bottom, I'm going to click on a choice that says Custom Table of Contents. So that's what I'm about to do now. Why don't you do that with me? So we're clicking on Table of Contents, pull down list, Custom Table of Contents should take you to this dialog window. Join me there, pause our video, and catch up with me. So in order to customize this table of contents, we're going to head to this button right over here that says Modify your table of contents. That bad boy right there. So that's where I'm about to click. And then in the next dialog window, I see a bunch of little choices in here about TOC. Gee, what does TOC stand for? Oh yeah, well that would be table of contents. So we've got these different levels of table of contents. Right now we've seen 3 levels. Notice you could have up to 9 levels of indentation based on 9 header 1s, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, and so forth. So I want to modify the look of table of contents level 1. So it's pre-selected. I'm going to go with that. And now I'm going to go down here and click the Modify button yet again. I clicked that Modify button to get here. Now I'm going to click this Modify button to get into the place where I can actually change the look of my table of contents level 1. For example, right now it's 12-point font. So maybe for the level 1s in my table of contents, I'd like to blow that up a little bit. How about a 16-point font for level 1? A little preview of it here. And maybe I'd like to make it bold as well. Another little preview there. Okay, so I'm going to leave the rest of it alone, leave the same font. So I increased the font size to 16. I added bold. I click OK. And right now you're not going to be able to see what that looks like yet, but go for it. So modify our table of contents level 1. Again, we'll make it bold and 16-point font and OK that. All right, come on back after that. Pause the video, catch up with me. All right, welcome back. We're now going to modify table of contents level 2. So let's make table of contents level 2. Remember, you're now going to click the Modify button here. So table of contents level 2, we'll make that, how about a 14-point size, and we'll make it italicized. And click on OK. So that was modifying level 2. You have to choose level 2 first. Come down here and modify, and we made it 14-point and italicized, so it's going to look like this. All right, we got one more to go here. We're going to go with table of contents level 3. We'll modify it. We'll leave it the same size, but we'll make it bold. OK that once. To finish editing table of contents level 3 specifically, let's OK again to finish modifying all 3 of those. You can see a little sample of it here. I see a print preview. Heading 1 is big and bold. Heading 2 is a little bit smaller, italicized. Heading 3 is smaller yet and bold. And last but not least, we're going to click OK. And it says, would you like to replace the table of contents that's there already? I'm going to say yes. Okay, go ahead and do that. And here is my new look. So besides just the indentation, I've made it more obvious that this is a big topic and these are subtopics in there. So take a moment and catch up with me there. We modified the level 1, level 2, level 3. You click OK, it'll ask you if you want to replace the one that's there, and you'll say yes. Good work, everybody. So that was a way to customize our table of content. So now I'd like to talk about what if one of these things moves to some other place? Will it automatically update the table of contents? Well, I'll tell you right now, the answer is going to be no. And let's see an example of this. So I'm going to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. I want to go find a place where it says the Outlook with future objectives. So maybe I'd like to kick this down to a brand new page, leave a little gap here, and start the Outlook section on a new page. So I'm going to click right before the word Outlook to put my insertion point there, and then I'd like to insert a page break. Now, if I don't want to insert a new section break, I can go to the Insert tab and insert a page break over here. If for some reason I wanted to insert a page break that was also a section break, that happened under Layout, Breaks, and Next Page. I just want a page break. You could do it here. You could do that under Layout and Breaks. There is the choice for page break right there. Also, I think we mentioned it once earlier in one of our earlier lessons, Control and Enter will also insert a page break. But while we're here under the Layout tab, let's go ahead and just click on Page, and there, that moved that to a new page. Right down there, Outlook is starting a new page. As I look at the bottom of my screen, it says that that is now on page 6. The word Outlook is on page 6. And I'm going to go back to my table of contents, and we'll discover that it doesn't know it's on page 6 yet. So put your video on pause, do what you saw me do. Click to put your insertion point in front of the word Outlook, and then insert a page break through your favorite method. Okay, welcome back. Time to go look at our table of contents. Turns out we'll need to update it. So I'm using Control Home to get to the top of my document. And I'm looking for the word Outlook, and it still thinks that's on page 5. So I would like to update my table. Last time I did that, I right-clicked in it, and on the pop-up menu it said Update Table. Here's another way to do it. If you click in the table of contents, then up here at the top, you will see another version of that button that says Update Table. So I'm going to go click on that, update the table. And really, in this case, the only thing we would need to do is update the page numbers. We didn't actually insert any new heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s, but just off the top of my head, I can't think of any drawbacks to just always saying, you know what, update the entire table. That'll get changes in page numbers, and if there's any new heading 1, heading 2, heading 3s, it will put that in the table of contents as well. So we're going right here, update the entire table, and then OK that. And now as I scroll down, I discover that it now knows that Outlook is on page 6, and anything that might be in the table of contents after that would have been updated as well. So your turn. You've already done the thing about kicking Outlook down to a new page. Now come up and refresh your table of contents. I should say update is the official term. Update your table of contents, please. So what have we seen here in the last few minutes? Well, we've seen how to insert a table of contents. We've seen how to update the table of contents. We've seen how to customize the table of contents. So we're going to look at a couple other kinds of references in our next couple of lessons. So this is a temporary end to the lesson about table of contents. In our previous couple of lessons, we learned how to insert a table of contents and then customize and modify and update our table of contents. And I would like to use that same file for this lesson. Now, I know that not everybody goes through these lessons in the same order, but if you have tried to jump in here just because you wanted to learn just about footnotes, then I'm afraid you're going to need to back up a couple of lessons, open up the file named Bookmarks, check out those last couple of lessons where we insert a table of contents, and then customize and modify the table of contents, and then you'll have this file ready for this lesson. So if you need to do that, now would be the time. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that you have this file already, and I'm going to continue right now. So we've talked about our first kind of reference, table of contents. The second type of reference I want to talk about is called a footnote. And you may have seen that there is one in this document already. You may have passed by it. You didn't necessarily know it was called a footnote, but you probably saw it while you were scrolling up and down. So I'm going to start scrolling down here, and I'm going to be looking at the bottoms of the pages because that's where footnotes go. Footnotes appear at the foot of a page. And I see one down here. It's on page 5, and it has a superscripted number 1, and it says effective April 1st. And that makes me wonder, okay, then what is effective April 1st? What does this footnote refer to? Well, here's a cool thing that you can do to figure it out. I'm going to point at the superscripted number 1. I'm going to put my mouse right on it, and when I double click, it takes me right to that place in the document as I zoom in on what it did. So here is another superscripted number 1 right here, and that's what a footnote marker looks like. So by default, it'll have a little number, and then the footnote itself will be placed at the foot of the page. And so here what they're referring to, let me just tap my escape key to zoom out, says, all right, also, we moved our corporate headquarters operation from New York to Kansas City. So that's what is effective April 1st. So if I point at this superscripted number 1, it actually tells me that that's what the footnote would say. It's probably too small on my screen for you to see that, but if you go do that on your screen, you can hover over that superscripted number 1. It'll actually show you the footnote, and if you double click on that superscripted number 1, it takes you to the footnote, and if you double click on the superscripted number 1 there, it takes you back to the text that the footnote refers to. So let's go see how to insert our own footnote. So let's go up to page 2, the first page after the table of contents, please. Concentrate on the paragraph right above the title that says strategy. And I'm looking at the first sentence. To put the year in broader perspective, this year marked the company's 5th consecutive year of profitability after a difficult period in the beginning due to extremely challenging marketing conditions. Well, as it turns out, one of our competitors actually went bankrupt during these extremely challenging marketing conditions, and I would like to put in a footnote that says that. Now, we're not going to name our competitor that went bankrupt, but we do want to impress our readers with the fact that we survived when some of our competitors are going bankrupt. So I would like to place the footnote marker right after the word challenging market conditions. I'm going to click right after the period to put my insertion point there. And then to put in my footnote, I'm going to go up to the References tab. Last time we were in the References ribbon, we were talking about table of contents. This time I want to insert a footnote. There's a lovely button that's going to do that for me. So I'm clicking right on that, Insert Footnote. And it put in a superscripted 1, and then at the bottom of the page, at the foot of the page, it put in another superscripted number 1. Wait a minute, don't I already have a footnote number 1? Well, yes I do, but it's on a different page. So footnotes go to the bottom of the page that they're on, and they start over numbering again on each page. So this is where I'm going to put my note down here at the bottom. This is where I'm going to type in my note about, in fact, one of our competitors went bankrupt. We won't name that competitor. We'll just give our readers that information. So, in fact, one of our competitors. So put the video on pause, and you're going to go insert that footnote, and then down here at the bottom, you will be typing in what I'm about to type in, only I'm not going to make you watch me type it. In fact, one of our competitors went bankrupt. So pause the video, catch up with me, you type while I'm typing. So there's the first footnote that we have entered by hand. I'd like to put one other one in here on this page. So we're bragging about all the wonderful things that we've done to increase our stockholder equity. And the last part of that says increased our market capitalization, blah, 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 to so many million at the same time last year, from so many million at the same time last year. I'd like to make a footnote that we did that without having to borrow any increased capital. So I'm going to click to put my insertion point right after the period there. I'm going to insert another footnote. And you may have expected it to be footnote number 2. But in fact, you notice it is footnote number 1. And that's because it counts them in the order that they appear on the page, not in the order that you type them in, according to chronological time here. So it made a new number 1 because this footnote is higher on the page than the footnote we put in there first. And the text for the footnote was going to be without borrowing any further money. So that's what I'm writing down at the bottom. Without borrowing any further money. And why don't you do the same? So we insert a new footnote a little higher on the page so that it becomes the new number 1, and then write in the note for the footnote without borrowing any further money. Catch up with me, put the video on pause, and do that stuff. Now, as I look up in the footnotes section of the ribbon, the footnotes group it's called, I see another button that says insert an endnote. So the difference between a footnote and an endnote is the footnote appears at the foot of the page that it's on, the endnote appears at the end of the entire document. So I'd like to show you what that looks like. It will actually have its own numbering system. So we're going to insert an endnote in our document. Let's scroll up just a little bit. And I'd like to make a note right here where it says strengthening our balance sheet. So I'd like to have a little footnote that says our balance sheet is available on our website. So I'm going to click to put my flashing insertion point right after the comma there, strengthened our balance sheet, comma, and then I'm going to have an endnote marker right there. So I'm going to go up here and click on not insert footnote, but insert endnote. So it put in my, my superscripted number 1, and then suddenly I am at the end of the document. Now it doesn't always start its own new page here. If I turn on the Pilcrows, I discover that there's a next page section break right there. Now we can take that out if we want, just to prove that we don't always see the endnotes on their own separate page. So I think I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to click here at the beginning of that section break. I'm going to tap the delete key. I'm going to do that one more time, tap the delete key, get rid of that page break, section break, and now you can see my endnote has appeared here. And now I need to write the text. And the text is going to say, see the balance sheet on our website. So your turn to do that. Again, let me remind you where I actually placed that, the marker for my endnote. It was right here in this first big paragraph where it says we strengthened our balance sheet. So right after the comma, that's where I had put my insertion point. I went to my References tab, and instead of inserting a footnote, I inserted an endnote. And then the text for that was, see the balance sheet on our website. So pause the video and try that out. I'm going to hide the Pilcrows just to unclutter the screen. So what have we seen over the last few minutes? We have seen that when you insert a footnote, it puts in a superscripted number, and it numbers those as to what order they are on the actual page, not what order you type them in. And footnotes appear at the bottom of the page, where endnotes appear all the way at the end of the document. Now, some people are not so crazy about the endnotes, because the fact that they're not at the end of a page makes you wonder, so what does it refer to when you're just looking at a printout of this thing? See the balance sheet on our website, and it's got this little number 1, and I'm wondering what that refers to. Well, when I have the document open, it's easy. I can just point at the superscripted number 1, double-click on it, takes me right to that place in the document. But if all I've got is a printout of that, it can be a bit confusing to have that endnote down there and wonder what it refers to. Now, there is something I can do about that. I'm going to go back here to the References tab, and I'm noticing that there's a little pull-down arrow here next to the term next footnote. Now, one of the things I can do with that is click on the button that says next footnote, and it'll actually go find it, although it's a little bit hard to tell that it found it until I figure out where the flashing cursor is. But I notice there's a little pull-down arrow next to next footnote. I'm going to click on that. And I see choices about next footnote, previous footnote, next endnote, previous endnote, etc. So that's another way to kind of navigate around here. But I'd like to show you one more thing. We've got one of those sneaky little dialog launchers here. I'm going to click on that dialog launcher to open up yet another window where I notice the word convert. I'm going to click on convert. Then I've got several choices here. Convert all footnotes to endnotes. Or vice versa, convert all endnotes to footnotes. Or swap everything that's a footnote, turn it into an endnote, and vice versa. So what I'm thinking is I would like to take that thing that's an endnote and turn it into a footnote so it appears at the bottom of the page that it refers to. So that's what I'm going to do right here. So I'm going to say convert all my endnotes to footnotes, put them on the pages that they refer to. I'm going to OK that, and then I'm just going to close this window. And if I go to the end of the document, I discover there's no endnote there anymore. And if I go back to that first page, I discover that I now have 3 footnotes there. So feel free to try that if you like. It was a little bit of a roundabout thing there for a moment to get to the place where you could convert the endnote to a footnote that remind you how we did it. So we were in this whole section right here about footnotes. We saw a nice way to kind of navigate to the previous, the next, the next, the next. But then to actually convert it, we needed the dialog window launcher. And we went to the convert button. And faith in Begara, you're all Catholics now. No, it's not that kind of convert. And we said convert all of the endnotes to footnotes, and it did that. We okayed that, and then we closed and discovered that now we have 3 footnotes on that one page, and there are no endnotes anymore. So that's the quick and dirty on footnotes and endnotes. Our next session is talking about creating documents by gathering information from other people, from their websites, from their books, from magazines, and attributing that information to them so that we're not charged with stealing their intellectual property. We don't want to be charged with plagiarism when we publish our document. So we're going to go grab a fresh copy of the file name Practice Large Document. Please take a moment and do that. I will be doing the same. We've used this document in several other sessions. Maybe you saw them, maybe you didn't. I'm going to click on this little tool right here that shows me the stuff hiding in the background, the hard returns, the paragraph marks, officially named pilcrows. I'm going to select those pilcrows and tap the delete key. And then with my cursor flashing at the left edge of this page break, I'm going to tap the delete key one more time, and that makes this thing look like a normal document without a mysterious blank page at the top. And then I'm going to turn the pilcrows off. So do what you just saw me do. You may have done this in past lessons. So turn on the pilcrows, remove the page break. All right, now we're going to start scrolling down and looking through this information. You can see this is about a bookstore where we've got books, we've got music, all kinds of things that we sell. And there's an area right here that says, you will always find a special display of the current New York Times nonfiction bestsellers, as well as a collection of the classics. And maybe that's where this top 10 favorites list came from, is the New York Times website. First thing I think I'd like to do is kick this down to start a new page. So I'm going to click just in front of the T in top 10, and I'm going to use Control and Enter to insert a page break. Please do that for just a moment. That's a really quick way to do that. Control and Enter. Pause the video and come on back here. All right, time to put in my first citation. So be careful not to select text when you do this, because when you insert your citation, it's going to put text in the document, and if you already have something selected, you will lose the text that you had selected, and it'll be replaced by the citation. You wouldn't want that to happen. So I've placed my insertion point right after the part about and the sections in which they can be found, and then I'm going to attribute this to the New York Times website. All right, it's time to put in our first citation here. So I'm going to the References tab. I'm going to click on Insert Citation. I'm going to add a new source. And then up here at the top, we have quite a list of different sources for our citations. And so I'm going to tell it that I found this on a website. So I'm scrolling down and I'm going to say this is a document from a website. And then I'm going to fill in information about the author and the name of the website and the URL of the website, the name of the web page that I found it on, and so forth. So if you've been watching my lessons here, you know I'm a big jazz fan. So I'm going to say the author of this article was Mr. John Coltrane. And the name of the web page was Top 10 Book Favorites. And I'll fill in a little bit more and I'll magnify it on screen here so that you don't have to watch me type. So let me zoom in and magnify that, and you can copy that. John Coltrane, name of the page, top 10 favorites, just in case you're having trouble reading it on your screen. Name of the website, New York Times, in November of 2015, and the URL of that website is www.nytimes.com. So fill that in, and then down in the bottom corner, we'll click on OK. All right, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm clicking on the okie dokie button. And here comes my citation. And the way that it looks, whether it has a comma in it, or whether it has period or colons or just what, is controlled by the style of the citation. And as I click on a little list arrow here, we've got choices like APA style, Chicago style, Turabian style, Harvard style. You probably run into these somewhere in your schooling. In fact, in college, I had to take a whole semester to learn about how to do the APA style and get the right number of enter keys between things in the bibliography and blah, 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 blah. In fact, I've had 3 different students say, holy cow, it'll do all that formatting for me. I'm going to go finish my thesis. They were all really worried about having to go through all of the formatting stuff. Now that Word could handle that, they're just going to go in and write the stuff and let it handle the formatting for them. Life can be wonderful. So let's go insert another citation a little bit lower here. There's some stuff here about top music categories. And maybe this information came from a book. So I'm going to click right here after complete inventory of all types of music, and that's where I'm going to put my next citation. So I'm going to insert a citation. By the way, if this was from that same article, I could click on John Coltrane and it would just fill that in for me. I'm not that lucky here. So I'm going to add a new source, and I'm going to tell it that it came from a book. And then again, I'll fill in information about the author, and then I'll magnify it on screen, and you can copy it, or you can just make one up if you like. So put the video on pause, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to be working in the background. So here's the information that I put in. Author is Fernando McAllister. The title of the book is Well-Known Facts That I Just Made Up, published in 2010 in Bakersfield by Fly By Night Press. So copy that or make up your own. And now I'm going to click the OK button, and there is my second citation. So that's the process of how to insert the citations. Come on back for the next lesson where we'll talk about how do we then take those and put them into a bibliography, usually at the end of the document. So that will be our next lesson. Now that we've created the citations, it's time to build the bibliography. So I'd like to put that at the end of the document. I'm going to use my Control and End key combination to come to the end of the document. And maybe I'll even put the bibliography on its own page by inserting a page break right here. And again, the quick way to do that, Control and the Enter key to start a brand new page for our bibliography. So pause the video and come join me at the end of the document. Add a new page there, give it a page break, and then we'll put in our bibliography right there. All right, I'm going back up to the Citations and Bibliography group of buttons, where this time I'm noticing a button labeled Bibliography, and I'm going to click on that. And very much like some of the other things that we've seen, for example, the table of contents, they have several that are created that you can use right out of the box. Why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to? So again, these are going to have very similar formats, but maybe with slightly different titles. I got one that says Bibliography, one that says References, one that says Works Cited. So that's up to you which of those you'd like to use. I'm just going to go with door number 1 here, the one that says Bibliography. I click on that, and here comes my lovely bibliography created from the information that I put in the citations. Now the look of this, whether it has commas, whether it has periods, and what order things are in, that's all based on the style up here. So for example, if I switch from APA style to MLA style, I can see that things have shifted around here a little bit. Also, things will have shifted around in the citations above. Notice this time it only shows my name, not the month or the year that it was published. So that's all handled by the style. So take a moment and do that. You've got your cursor flashing down there on a new page, and you're going to go up here to the bibliographies and choose one of those layouts and let it do the work for you. And again, if yours looks different than mine, you just may have used a different style. I had been in APA style, then I changed it to MLA. I'm going to change it back to APA, which was the original. So that's the quick and dirty on how to insert a bibliography. Simple. The next thing I'd like to talk about in this document is putting an index. And again, the index usually appears at the end. And this is a list of words and phrases that are mentioned in the document and what pages they appear on. So that's going to be our next subject of discussion, an index. And it's going to be very similar to what we just did in the citations and the bibliographies. We're going to mark things that we want in the index, and then we're going to gather them into an index at the end. So let's see how to do the marking of things for our index. So I'm scrolling to the top of this document. Maybe I'll just use Control Home. Might as well have Word do the work for me. So I'm scrolling slowly through the document, and I see a section in here that mentions music and CDs and tapes. New Age, alternative rock, everything in between. So maybe I'd like to mark all of the places where the word music appears. And in this case, I do want to select the text that I'm going to put in my index. So here I am choosing the word music. And with that selected, I'm going up here to the top under my References tab. And this time, instead of Citations and Bibliography group, I'm going to go right next door, 2 levels, to the Index group. And we're going to start out by marking an entry, and then later we'll insert the index, and usually that goes at the end of the document as well. So, to mark the entry, I click where it says Mark Entry, opens up a dialog window here. It has the word that I had selected. In a few minutes, we'll see how to do a sub-entry. And basically, it's going to record what page this was on. And in order to mark this, I've got a button down here at the bottom that says Mark It. But usually the whole point of creating an index is that I want to know all of the places that that word can be found. So generally, when I'm creating an index, when I'm creating the things that I want to put in the index, I should say, I will usually choose Mark All. That's usually kind of the whole point of making an index. Where are each of the pages where I could look up this subject? So I'm going to click on Mark All, and then I'm going to close this window, and I would like you to do the same. So how did I do that? Well, I selected the word music in this paragraph that follows the title, What is Books and Beyond? And so I selected the word music, and I marked it as an index entry. So I selected music, I clicked on Mark Entry, and that put in an entry for the word music. And it did kind of a strange thing here. I have the Pilcrow showing, and I'm going to zoom in on this paragraph, and I'm noticing, oh, here's the word music right here, and here is the index entry. Which begs the question, didn't I have it selected down here? Yes, I did. But one of the things that happens when you mark something as an index entry, it finds the first version of that in the paragraph that you're in, and marks that one. And that's why when I said mark all, I'm kind of surprised that it marked this one and not that one, and it even marked one that wasn't the one I had selected. Well, that's the way that it's set up. So it'll only mark it once in the paragraph that you're sitting in, and it'll mark it on the first occurrence of that paragraph, even if you were selecting one that came later. Now, you can hide that by hiding the Pilcrows, and I'm going to do that for the moment. Sometimes this kind of clutters things up, gets in the way. So I'm going back to my Home tab, and I'm turning off those hidden symbols. Actually, I guess I should have left them on, because I'd like to show you that it did find other occurrences of the word music. So I'm going to go turn those back on, and now as I'm scrolling down here, top 10 selling books, easy listening, and then down here I see the word music, and another index entry. That's what the XE stands for, index entry. But you might notice that here's the word music right here, and it doesn't seem to have marked that one. Well, an odd fact is that music with a capital M is treated as a totally different entry than music with a lowercase m. So if what I want to do is also mark the places where the capital M music occurs, then I'll have to individually make that a separate entry. So that's what I'm about to do now. I'm going to select this music with a capital M, and I'm going to insert another entry here. So back to my references, mark an entry for my index. Now it has capital M music, and I'm going to mark all. So there's the new index entry. Notice every time you do that, it shows the Pilcrows. And if there's any place else in this document where music appears with a capital M, that was just marked as well. All right, I'm going to close this window, take a moment and catch up with me, and mark the music with a capital M. All right, now I want to talk about different types of music, and I want to make index sub-entries for that. So I'd like to scroll back up through the document, and I'd like to mark some of the subcategories of music, and this will be called a sub-entry into our index. So I'm scrolling down and eyeballing things here. It says we've got an inventory of CDs and tapes ranging from New Age, alternative rock. Not sure I'll include everything in between, but we'll at least add those two as sub-entries, and we'll put them under the capital M music, I guess. I'm going to flip a coin there. So I'm going to select New Age, and I'm going to go mark it as an entry. But I need to do a special thing to this one, and I'm afraid it's kind of clunky. And this process hasn't changed over the years. What I need New Age to be is a sub-entry under capital M music. And so I'm going to select New Age, and I wish that I could drag it down to the sub-entry box, but I can't do that. So instead, I'm going to have to cut and paste it. So I'm using Control X to cut it. I'm going to click down in sub-entry. I'm going to use Control V to paste it. And then in the main entry, I'm going to make that one capital M in music. Your turn to do that. So go find where it says New Age, select that. Mark entry. You're going to have to cut it from main entry and paste it into sub entry. And then down at the bottom, mark all. When I close this window, I can see the new index entry next to New Age. All right, think you could do that again? Try it for alternative rock. Select that text, alternative rock. And now your mission, my impossible mission force, should you choose to accept your mission, is to mark that in as a sub-entry under capital M music. Have at it. And if you haven't already, mark all. All right, maybe for our last one, let's mark all of the occurrences of these letters CD. So you know how to do that by now. This won't be a sub-entry. This will just be a main entry. So select any version of CD anywhere in the document because we're going to mark all. Mark entry, going to be a main entry. Down at the bottom, mark all. And close that window. All right, do your thing there. Looks kind of bad when it's in the middle of a table like this, but remember this is going to be hidden. So if I go up to my Home tab and I hide the Pilcrows, yeah, so I don't actually see that index entry code. All right, everybody, it's time to see how to actually put in the index. And again, this usually happens at the end of the document. So I'm going to use my Control and End keys to go to the end of the document, where I currently already have a bibliography. Now, I could insert a page break and put in the index on that next page, but maybe I'll just put a little divider line between them. So I'm going to hit the Enter key, and I'm going to use a trick that I used in an earlier lesson, but it only took a few seconds. You may have missed it, or maybe you didn't actually take that lesson. Nice quick way to put a straight line across here is to tap the minus key 3 times. 1, 2, 3. You can actually type it more than that, but 3 is enough. And then when I hit the Enter key, it puts a nice little border across there, and I'm going to hit the Enter key again, and then this is where we'll put our index. So take just a moment and do that. Hit the Enter key at least once, and then minus, 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 Enter key, and you'll have the little divider there. And then here's where we're going to put our index of the index entries. So with my insertion point flashing where I would like the index to appear, I'm going back up to my References tab one more time, and this time instead of Mark Entry, it's going to be Insert Index. Let's choose that one and all. All right, so this takes me to a place that shows me a little preview of it. And we don't have very many entries in it, but particularly if I have a lot of entries, I might want to leave this as its default setting for 2 columns. But if we've only got 6 or 8 different entries, 2 columns might look a little funky. So I'm going to cut that down to just 1 column. And then last but not least, I need to go down and click on OK. Pretty exciting, huh? Actually, it's not so exciting when you only got 4 or 5 of them in there. And you notice, unlike our table of contents and our bibliography, it doesn't have a little title there that says index. So you might want to add that on your own. I'm going to click to put my insertion point just above there. I'm going to hit the Enter key, and I'm going to add the word index. And I think I'd like to make it have the same look as the word bibliography. So thank goodness for the Format Painter brush. I'm going to select the word bibliography. I'm headed to my Home tab. I'm going to click on this Format Painter brush right here, and then apply that formatting to the word index. And now that's got a nice solid look to it. So finish that off, everybody. Insert your index, and then insert a label that says index, and then make it look like the words bibliography, and you are good to go. So you'll notice it has the page numbers here, and it has the sub-entries. And notice that music with a lowercase m is different than music case. And also notice that music with a lowercase m is different than music with an uppercase m, and all of that stuff that we talked about. So these are not the number of occurrences, these are the page numbers that they're found on. All right, good work, everybody. So thanks for checking out Module 5, everything about forms and inserting document references, and finish it off with bibliographies and indexes. Come on back for Module 6 when you get a chance. For the moment, this is Dan McAllister signing off, also known as Fernando, signing off for Module 5. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Welcome, or as the case may be, welcome back to the wonderful world of Word 2016 with Dan McAllister. We're going to start Module 6, which has to do with macros, customizing our toolbars, and linking within and outside of Microsoft Word. You'll need to get some practice files. If you've been following along with earlier lessons, you've already got the practice files, but we understand not everybody goes from Lesson 1 to Lesson 2 to Lesson 3. So when you download your practice files, they're going to come in a zipped folder, and you'll extract that folder, and I recommend that you put it out on the desktop. And also in earlier lessons, we created this folder out on the desktop named Finished Word Documents. So the general method is, at least usually, we'll open a file from the Word sample files, we'll doctor it up, and then we'll do a Save As to drop it in the Finished Word Documents. And by choosing Save As instead of Save, you've not destroyed the original in case you'd like to go back and play with it again later. Otherwise, you'd have to download the files again. All right, assuming you have your practice files, let us now start Microsoft Word, one and all. I'm going to do that. It's just off the bottom of my screen. You won't be able to see where I'm clicking on it. So here I am, having started Word, and now I'm going to go open one of our practice files. I'd like to open one named Intro Macros, please. So I'm going to head out to open that file. You're going to do the same, and when we get back together, we will start working on that document, Intro Macros. Have at it. Put your video on pause, go open that file. I'll be doing the same thing in the meantime. Very often when you open a document like this that came from a website, you might see a warning at the top of the document saying that you'll have to enable editing. And you should do that in this case. Enable editing if you see that warning. So what is a macro? Well, the word macro is Latin for larger than life. And in this case, we're talking about automating things. Back in the 60s on the Disney TV show, every once in a while they'd have episodes called Better Living Through Automation. That's what we're hoping for here, better living through automation. So for my first one, I want to talk about phone numbers. This is one that I actually use for myself. When I'm going someplace to do a training assigned by my company, very often I will have a document that tells me where I'm supposed to go and what the phone number is and that kind of thing. And very often the phone number is just written out as a bunch of digits. I like to have the phone number look like parentheses around the area code and then a space and then the 3-digit sort of prefix and then a hyphen and then the 4-digit ending. But I don't always get the documents with it typed in that way. So I've created a little macro that I call fix phone, and I'm going to show you how to create that one. So first of all, I need some phone numbers in there. So I'm going to maybe click down here next to the second paragraph. I'm going to hit the enter key to kick it down. I'm going to hit the up arrow key, and I'm going to build a couple of imaginary phone numbers. So why don't you do the same? Kick down that second paragraph, and we'll put in a phone number, and then hit the enter key and put in another phone number. Now, it doesn't have to be the same phone number as mine, but make it a 10-digit phone number, please, with no parentheses or anything like that. We'll make the macro fix that phone number. So let's see, maybe I'm going to have one that's 666 555 1212. I'm going to hit the enter key and build in another one, 777 9898 901. Literally making one up here. So take a moment and do that, put in a couple of phone numbers, and then come on back. All right, in an earlier module, we had installed the Developer tab. But we understand that not everybody takes these modules in order. So let's take just a second to talk about how can we get the Developer tab to appear up there in the ribbon, because it's usually not turned on by default. So one of the ways to do that is to right-click anywhere in said ribbon, and on the pop-up menu that appears, there is a choice here to customize the ribbon. And that's where I'd like us to head. Customizing the ribbon. And when you first get there, on the right-hand side, you'll see all the command tabs, the Home tab, the Insert tab, the Design tab, Home, Insert, Design. And as you scroll down initially, there will be one called Developer, but it won't have a check mark initially. Mine does because I turned it on in an earlier module. Yours will be turned on if you took that earlier module. Otherwise, go ahead and give it a check mark right now, and then down at the bottom, click the Okie dokie button. And you too will now have a Developer tab just like mine. Woo woo! So get yourself a Developer tab and then come on back here. All right, let us click on the Developer tab. And over at the left-hand side, we have some stuff about macros. We have something about recording a macro. Ooh, recording a macro? You mean like a movie? Well, kind of. When you record a macro, what Word actually does is record the actions that you took and write them out in a language called Visual Basic, and it stores them in a special place that we'll see. And then later you can go back and get a list of the macros that exist in your document. I'm clicking on macros, and you can see I don't have any macros in here. Also, something I'd like to note is that you will be able to see a list of macros in all active templates and documents. That means I would be able to see a list of macros that exist in some other document as long as I have it open. That's what active means. So I'm going to close that. I'm just going to cancel or click the close button. Eventually we will have some macro names in there. So now to create our first macro, I'm going to click and put my insertion point right in front of that phone number. Now there's a couple of things that the macro recorder doesn't record. It doesn't record what you have selected before you start the macro. It doesn't record time going by. So we can turn on our macro recorder and I'll be explaining what we're doing, and then when you decide to sort of play back the macro later, it's called running the macro, you won't have to wait for that time to go by that was going by as I was discussing how we build the macro. So let's get started. You'll watch me first and then you'll try it on your own. So I'm going to go up here and click on the Record Macro button, and it pops open this dialog window where I need to answer a couple of questions before I actually start recording my macro. You'll notice it has this generic name until we say otherwise, Macro 1. Yeah, you'll usually want to give it a better name than that. We can assign a clickable button that would appear either in our Quick Access toolbar or in the ribbon itself. We can assign a keyboard shortcut, or we can actually do those things later. It also asks me where am I going to store this macro, and the default choice is to store the macro in the template upon which all new documents are built. It's called normal.dotm, and it's hidden several levels deep in the folder structure of your computer. And you can put in a little description down here. It will write that description in the macro, and that can be helpful because maybe I created the macro 6 months ago, and I'm trying to remember what the heck the thing does before I run it. So I could have a little description that would show up as well. So let me zoom out here. So basically the first thing you want to do is name your macro. And there's a couple of rules about how the name can look. The name can have letters and numbers and certain punctuation symbols, although I try to stay away from those. The underscore, for example, is a legal symbol in a name of a macro. And probably the hardest rule to remember about the name of a macro is it cannot have a space in it. You can't have a space in the name of the macro. So I'm going to call this first one fixphone with no space. Now you're not required to capitalize the first letter of 2 words in a phrase. It's just a nice, easy way to do it. You've heard of uppercase, you've heard of lowercase. I've heard this referred to as camel case. Got these little humps in it there. Right, I'm zooming out again. So I'm naming it fixphone. I'm going to store it in that normal.dot template. I'm not going to assign a button to it yet. I'm not going to assign a keyboard shortcut to it yet. I'm going to write a little description of what it does. It adds parentheses, space, and hyphen to a straight phone number. Now, very often in my lessons, I'll say, now do this much, and then pause the video, and then we'll go on. This is not really a case where we can do that. You kind of have to do this all the way through, which means I have to demonstrate it by doing it all the way through, and I'm going to do that right now. So remember that I had my cursor, my insertion point, flashing right in front of the phone number, and now I'm going to perform the steps that I want the macro to do. It will record it, and it will write Visual Basic code. So here I go. I'm going to click on OK, and suddenly my mouse has changed. Oh, you can't see it with my zooming in software. It's supposed to look like a little cassette tape, or maybe a VHS tape. And some people look at that and they think it kind of looks like a frowny face, so sometimes we call it Mr. Sad Tape Face. So I am now about to perform the steps that I want the macro to record. That is, I'm entering a parenthesis over here. I'm hitting the right arrow key. I'm putting in the other parenthesis. I'm hitting the space bar, moving the mouse, inserting the hyphen. And that's what I want the macro to do. Fix that phone number, hence the name, fixphone. Now, a very common mistake is to forget to turn off the macro recorder. And so I've seen people record a macro and then try to play it back and it's still recording. And then later when they play it back, it runs it twice because it recorded it that way. So that begs the question, how the heck do I get it to stop recording? Well, one of the ways you might see on screen right now, it's right up here, a little blue button that says stop recording. That replaced the button that said record macro. The other place that you can stop the recording is down here towards the bottom of the screen. There's another little box down there that mimics the one at the top. And you won't be able to see it while I'm recording like this, but if I were to hover over it, it would say, a macro is recording, click here to stop the macro. I think it's easier to remember to do it up here. So I'm about to do that, stop recording. All right, ready to try it? Start out by clicking to place the insertion point in front of the phone number, and then turn on the macro recorder by clicking the Record Macro button. You're going to give it the name fixphone. Remember, no spaces in there. You can write a little description as to what it does, puts in the parentheses, the space, the hyphen, and then when you're ready to start, you click OK, and you'll see Mr. Sad Tape Face, and then you will perform those steps. You put in the parentheses and the space and the hyphen, and when you're all done, make sure you click on the Stop Macro button. So pause the video and go set that thing up. So I'm going to end this lesson right here, and when we come back, we'll talk about, so how do you get it to perform that macro called running the macro? Having created our first macro, I'd now like to talk about how do I make it perform that macro called running the macro. Well, our first way is going to be getting a list of the macros. And I mentioned one of the ways to do that is right up here where it says macros. Let's go click on that. And you should see a list of the macros that exist now. There's just this one called fixed phone. And our first way to run it is to select it. It's blue. And then over here at the right-hand side, there's a button that says run. But before I run it, I need to have my insertion point at the beginning of the next phone number here. So at the moment, I'm going to either cancel or click the close button. And then I'm going to place my insertion point where I need to run it. And now I'm going to go run the macro using the run button. So give me a list of the available macros. Choose the one called fixed phone. Click the run button. Bang, there it is. Parentheses, space, hyphen. Your turn, go try that. Run your macro. Make sure you put the cursor at the beginning of the phone number that needs to be fixed. And then come on back. So at the beginning of this session, I said that what it does is write Visual Basic code in the background, and by default it stores it in the template upon which all new documents are built. But I would like to show you what that code looks like for a moment. So in the upper left-hand corner, I see a button that says Visual Basic. That's the language in which this macro is written. So I'm going to go up and click on the button that says Visual Basic, and it opens up this totally separate window. Over at the left side, I can see a couple of little boxes here, properties, and the project window. And my macro is stored up here in a place called normal. That's the actual name of that template upon which all new documents are built. There's a little plus sign next to it. I'm going to click on that and it expands it. Then there's a folder here named modules. I'm going to double click on the modules folder. A little pull down appears there that says new macros. And I'm going to click on new macros. In fact, I'm going to double click on new macros. And it opens up this little dialog window where I can actually see the code that it wrote. Maybe I'll maximize that for a moment. So that's what I would like you to do right now, please. You were back here. I'll show you a keyboard shortcut that I just used to step between the macro editor and the actual document where I've created the macro. So in order to get there, our first way was up here in the upper left corner. We're going to click on Visual Basic. In the window that appears, you won't see this place just yet. You'll have to click on Normal. Little plus sign expands the word Normal. Little plus sign expands the word Modules. And then you'll need to double click on New Macros in order to see your code. So put the video on pause, catch up with me there, get it to show you the code here in the Visual Basic Editor, it's called. Now, as I look at the code, I notice, all right, it seems to have some name up here, sub fixed phone, and then at the bottom it says end sub. This is called a subroutine. And here's what it did with its name. And then this stuff down here in black letters is the code that it wrote. And then the stuff above it with apostrophes and green letters is the notes that we made for ourselves. So it has the name of the macro, and then here's that little note that I wrote. What does it do? It adds parentheses, space, and a hyphen to a straight phone number. And then here is the actual code. So anything with an apostrophe in front of it is called a comment. And sometimes when people are trying to fix their macro because something went wrong, they can disable a step by clicking on it and then typing an apostrophe in front of it. And then when I move down, that one turns green and it is no longer code that would be executed. That's kind of an advanced topic for this early in the day, so I'm just going to take away that apostrophe. So sometimes as you look at the code, it's kind of like English and you can sort of figure out what it does. So you can see it selected text, and then it typed some text, and the actual text that it typed was the left paren. Then it recorded me moving right. That was me hitting the right arrow key. And so I actually moved right 3 characters, and it says so right there. And then I typed in the right parenthesis, and then I moved 3 characters to the right, and then I typed the hyphen, and then I stopped the recorder. So that should be pretty much the same code that you're seeing on your screen. Now, a moment ago, you saw me quickly switch between the Visual Basic Editor window and the Word window. The keyboard shortcut for that is Alt and F11. So right now I'm going to hold the Alt key. While I'm holding it, I'm tapping F11, takes me back to Word. And that's just what we call a toggle. That is, you can use that same keystroke to jump back and forth. So I'm going to hold Alt and tap F11 again. I find myself back in the Visual Basic Editor. So take just a second and try that. Alt F11 a couple of times, see how it just toggles back and forth. Now, if you made a mistake while you were recording the macro, and you fixed it before you end the recording, it won't show the mistake. Like if I was trying to type in the left paren, and I typed the left paren, and then I realized, oh, I needed the right paren, I could just hit the backspace key in Word while I'm recording the macro. It won't show that I put in the wrong paren and then fixed it. It'll just show the fix. It'll show the finished version. But there may be times when you need to edit this code, and we're going to talk about that in our next section. So for the moment, why don't we go back to the Word window? That would be, of course, what keyboard shortcut? Hopefully you're all saying why that would be Alt F11, Dan. So I'm doing that, Alt F11. And then I'm going to end this lesson, and when we come back, we'll do another macro here. In our next example of a macro, I'm going to imagine that once a month I get a document sent to me from some outside source, and I'm supposed to send that around to other people in my department or inside my company, but I'm supposed to sort of brand it with my name and the company slogan. And I have to do that about once a month, so why don't I record a macro? Better living through automation, after all. So I'm going to place this at the top of the document. That is, I'm going to use maybe my Control Home key to put my cursor at the top of the document. Control and Home. And then this is where I want to record my next macro. So remember, it doesn't record where the cursor is sitting when you record the macro. So take a moment and do that. Put your cursor at the beginning of the document, and then again, I have to demonstrate the entire macro. I can't really pause in the middle. Actually, I can, but you won't be able to pause in the middle and jump back and forth between the screens. So you got to watch the whole thing here. And in this one, I'm going to make a little mistake so that we could talk about a little bit of editing in the Visual Basic Macro Editor. So here I am recording my macro with a little mistake in it. So I'm going to go up here and click on the Record Macro button again. It says, what do you want to name it? This time I'm going to call it my signature. If you look closely there, you'll see that I made a mistake already. What mistake have I made? That's right, I have a space in the name, and that's not allowed. So I'm going to make that one big word. I'll probably camel case it again. My signature. All right, let's see. I also want to store this in the normal template. And then my description is going to say it adds my name, company, and slogan. Then I'm going to start recording here as I click OK. All right, here I go. So I'm typing in my name. I'm making up a company, Dancor. Our company slogan, we're the best of the best. Now I said best, but I typed bust. That's the mistake that I'm recording here. And then I'm going to hit the enter key. It records me doing that. And so I'm ready to finish that up. What do I need to remember to do right here if I'm done recording my macro? Yes, I need to stop recording the macro. So I'm going to go up and click on the Stop Recording button, and there's my finished macro. All right, you can use your name, you can use your company name, you can use your company slogan, but make a mistake in there somewhere. Or you can do what I did. Let me zoom in on that. Dan McAllister from the newly created Dancor, and we're the best of those, supposed to be best, but I typed bust. All right, catch up with me. Put the video on pause and do that thing. Don't forget to stop recording the macro when you're done. So let's prove to ourselves that we could actually run this macro in a different document. I'm going to create a new document right now by using Control and the letter N. Why don't you do the same? Create a new document through Control, letter N. Not Control End. That would just take my cursor to the end of my document. Control N as in new. So here comes my brand new document, and I would like to run my macro. So let's see, the first way we did it was by going over to our Developer tab, and then clicking on the name Macros, to see the names of the macros that exist. Notice it alphabetizes the list, and I would like to run the My Signature macro. So I'm going to select it, and then over here I'm going to click the Run button. And there it is, including the mistake. So try that out. Make a new document, try your macro. Hopefully things are going swimmingly with the built-in mistake. And then we'll talk about how do we go in and fix that mistake. So I need to switch from this document to the Visual Basic Editor. And you must remember our keyboard shortcut by now, Alt and F11, which is what I'm doing right now, Alt F11. So here's the fix phone macro code. Here's the new My Signature code, including the mistake. We're the best of the bust. That's not going to impress anybody that we're the best of the bust. We want to say we're the best of the best. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to fix that bust to make it say best. So I would like you to go to the Visual Basic Editor and fix whatever mistake you made. Put the video on pause, go ahead and fix that, and then come on back. Now, eventually we're going to need to save this, and there is actually a save button here in the Visual Basic Editor, but in fact the macros will be saved with the document. But there is a special thing we're going to need to talk about saving a document with macros in it, and that will be in the next lesson. So for the moment, having fixed the mistake, let's use our Alt F11 to go back to our document, maybe hit the Enter key, leave a little gap, and then run that macro again. Do you remember how? You're going to go to the list of macros. You're going to choose the one called My Signature. You're going to click the Run button, and it should run it for you. I'm going to do that right now. Macros list, My Signature, run it. There it is, and now I'm the best of the best instead of the best of the bust. So run your macro now. The one that you fixed, you should see the fix happening. Happy, happy, joy, joy. And I'm going to end this session, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the saving process for saving a document that has macros in it. So why don't we take a moment and switch back to the document that we were using when we recorded the macro. So I'm about to do that. I'm going to go back to my Intro to Macros document. And I'd like you to do the same. Take a moment and switch back to that document. You can do it a couple of ways, by the way. You could go up here to the View tab and choose to switch windows, and it'll show you what documents you have open. The second one we created and not named, it's got the generic name, Document 1, and then you would be able to switch back to your Intro to Macros that way. All right, I'm going to stop right there for the moment, and when we come back in our next lesson, we're going to talk about how can you save this as a macro-enabled document. In our previous lessons, we have recorded 2 macros, and we have chosen to store them in the template for all new documents. Now, this thing that I'm about to do is only required if I had made a different choice. That is, if I had chosen to store the macro in the document that I was working on when I recorded it. That happens probably more often in Excel than it does in Word. But let's imagine that that's happened. And now I need to save this document as something called a macro-enabled document. And that's because if I have stored my macros in this document and I don't save it as macro-enabled, I will lose my macros, and that would be a nasty thing. So again, let me reiterate, it's not really required for this document because I didn't store the macro in the document, but let's imagine that I had, and I want to talk about how do I save a document as macro-enabled. So I'm going to go up and choose File and Save As, because I don't want to put it in the place of my practice file. So I'm going to choose Save As. I'm going to browse for where to put it. I want to put it in my Finished Lessons folder. And then right now down here, you can see it's ready to save this thing as Word document. But this is what's called a list box. I've got a list arrow in there. So if I click in that box, I see a whole bunch of other choices, one of which is the one that I want, Word macro-enabled document. I don't need to make it a macro-enabled template. I need to save it as a macro-enabled document. Now, I don't know if you see the 4-letter extensions on your screen. That's not really a Word thing. It's a Windows operating system thing. But if you can, you would notice this one is going to end in .docm, M for macro, instead of docx. So that's the choice I'm going to make, storing this as a macro-enabled document. And then last but not least, just one last check to make sure it's going to be macro-enabled. I click Save. So in this case, it says it's going to be upgraded to the newest file format. That doesn't really have anything to do with the macros themselves, but you're going to see that happen. And click OK, and you have created a macro-enabled document. So pause the video. Make yourself a macro-enabled document. How's that for a nice short lesson? In our next session, I'm going to get a little bit fancier with my macro. For my next trick, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pull a rabbit out of my top hat. Oops, left my top hat. Sometimes it seems like magic when you're doing macros, but it's not. So I've mentioned in an earlier session that it doesn't record what you have selected as you begin recording your macro. And in this case, what I want it to do is create something called a pull quote. And you've seen these in magazine articles, you just didn't know they were called pull quotes. It's some featured part of the article, and it looks different than the rest of the article. And so in this case, I want to make a particular paragraph look different than the others. Maybe I'll scroll down and do it to this one that's coming right after the phone numbers. And remember, I can't start building this thing and then say, hey, now you try that part of it, and then we come back in the middle of making the macro. I have to do it all at once. But let me talk about what I want it to do. So what I would like it to do is make both ends of this paragraph nice and smooth. Now, right now, if I go to the Home tab, I can see these alignment buttons in the paragraph group. Left align the paragraph. It would look like this with a nice smooth left edge, but jagged right edge. And in fact, that's what I've got right now. Nice smooth edge, jagged right edge. If, on the other hand, I were to click the centering button, then it will center every line between the margins, but then I'll have jagged edges on both sides. If I choose to right align it, I'll have a nice smooth edge on the right, but jagged on the left. This fourth button here is called Justify, and it will make it look just like that little picture looks, nice smooth edges on both sides. So that'll be part of what I want my macro to do. Then I'll also want it to indent both sides a ½ inch, and then I'd like to wrap a little box around it called a border. So that is the magic that my macro is going to perform. Also, a little bit more magic this time, I'm going to assign a keyboard shortcut to the macro. So the next time I want to run it, I'm not going to have to stop doing whatever I'm doing, go to the Developer tab, get a list of the macros, choose one, and then run it. I'll be able to run it by a keyboard shortcut that I will assign as I'm recording it. By the way, you can also assign the keyboard shortcut later, but it's nice to do it while you're recording it. So I'm about to turn on the macro recorder, but before I do that, I want to select the paragraph that I'd like to turn into my pull quote. And I promise I'll wrap a little bow around this at the end. I'll remind you of everything that I did before it's your turn to do it. So I have pre-selected my text. It's time to start recording. So I go to my Developer tab. I click on the Record Macro button. I get to give it a name. I'm going to call it Pull Quote. But if I continue from there, I'm going to have problems. Anybody see the mistake that I've just made? You may remember you're not allowed to have a space in the name of your macro. So I got to take the space out of there. I'll call it pull quote. I'll use the camel case capital letters there. By the way, this would be a legal character, the underscore, the character that you get when you hold the shift key and tap the hyphen. So it kind of looks like a space, but it's not. That would be legal. I'll see people that like to do that. I'm just going to go with the camel case version. And I said I was going to assign a keyboard shortcut to it. I can do that by clicking this button. However, if I do that right now, it won't let me get back into this window to assign my description. So instead, I'm going to put in the description first, and then I'll assign the keyboard shortcut. And I'm not going to make you watch me type the description. I'll pause the video for a second myself. I'll fill that in, and it will look like it appears by magic. All right, now I can assign my keyboard shortcut. By the way, there's a way to do that later, but it's kind of nice to do it while you're recording the macro. So I'm going to click, having filled in the name and filled in the description, and deciding that I'm going to store it in the template for all new documents from now on. By the way, that doesn't make this macro available in old documents I've created, only new ones. So here I am assigning my keyboard shortcut. Opens up a lovely dialog window here with a cursor flashing in a box that says press the new shortcut key. By the way, above there it says the name of the macro that I'm running and the fact that it's being stored in the file name normal.dotm. That is that template for all new documents. So my keyboard shortcut, I could, for example, assign Control P for pull quote. But that's probably raising a question in your head right now. What does Control P usually do? Yes, it's the keyboard shortcut for print. So if I stored this macro in my current document, then I would only be affecting this document. But since I'm storing it in the file name normal.dotm, then Control P would suddenly run my macro instead of printing the document. So I'm going to try to pick a keyboard shortcut that I don't already use for other things. And it can be kind of difficult to find a keyboard shortcut that's not already assigned to something. So let's see, I'm going to use the backspace key to take that one out, and instead I'm going to use Control and Shift and P. All right, so that one is actually already assigned to something. It tells me that right down here. It's currently assigned to font size select. But I never happen to use Control Shift P to select a font size. I just go to one of the toolbars and choose the font size. So in my case, Control Shift P will make a dandy keyboard shortcut. And then one more thing I have to do down here in the bottom left corner, I need to assign that. So having assigned it, it now says, all right, current keyboard shortcut for this is Control and Shift and P. And now when I click close, here comes Mr. Sad Tape Face. I am now actually recording the macro. So I'm going to do those things that I was talking about. Let's see, I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm going to apply the justified alignment. There we go, nice smooth edges on both ends of the paragraph. Now I'm going to indent it 1/2 inch from both sides. That's most easily done by going here in the paragraph group and clicking on this lovely dialog launcher, where I can then set the indentation on the left and on the right. So let's see, I want that to be 1/2 inch on the left, 1/2 inch on the right. Stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. And then I'm going to OK that. And so there's my justified indented paragraph. And then the last thing I said I was going to do was wrap a little border around that. And in my paragraph group, there is this button right here for borders. And I'm going to click the pull down arrow next to it. I'm going to choose the one that says outside border. And there's the border around the outside of that thing. All right, before I move on, if that's the last thing I want the macro to do, anybody remember what I need to do right now? Yes, that would be to get rid of Mr. Sad Tape Face by stop recording. So one of the ways to do that is down here on my status bar. There's a button that says a macro is currently recording. You can't actually see it saying that as I do it on screen because the little note is off screen at the bottom. So instead, the other way to do it, and probably the way that's easiest for everybody to remember, is I'm going to go back to my developer tab where the button that used to say record macro now says stop recording. And I click on that, and I have stopped recording, and then I can feel free to click anywhere I want. And there is my pull quote. Now again, I don't really expect you to remember all of those steps, so let me just kind of remind you of what they were in a relatively quick fashion. I had selected the paragraph. And with it selected, I turned on the macro recorder. I gave it a name, pull quote, no space. I gave it a description. What it does, let's see, it justifies both sides of a paragraph, indents it 1/2 inch, and wraps a border around it. And having filled that in, I then clicked on keyboard, and I assigned the keyboard shortcut Control Shift P. I then had to click the assign button in the lower left corner of that window, and then I was able to close that window, and I started recording. And once I was starting to record, I went to the Home tab. Let me just back out of here for a second. I went to the Home tab while I was recording. I applied the justified format. I went to the dialog launcher where I indented 1/2 inch from both sides and clicked OK, and then wrapped a border around it with this pull down arrow, the outside border. So I would like you to do that right now. Put the video on pause and create that macro, everybody. Don't forget to stop recording when you're done. All right, welcome back. So now I would like to try to run my macro on another paragraph. So I'm going to go pre-select that paragraph. And what was our keyboard shortcut that we assigned? Anybody remember? I'm hoping you do. It's Control, Shift, and P. So instead of having to go to the Developer tab, go find the name of the macro, and click the Run button, I'm simply going to tap right now Control and Shift, and P for pull quote. And there it is. Indented, justified, and wrapped with a border. All right, you try that. Remember, you have to pre-select the paragraph, and then try your keyboard shortcut, Control, Shift, and P. In our next session, we're going to talk about how we could assign a button to click on, maybe up in our Quick Access toolbar at the top. So come on back for that next lesson, everybody. Hope you're having some geeky fun along the way. Better living through automation. Thus far, we have two ways to run our macros. Either by going to the Developer tab, getting a list of the available macros, and then clicking the Run button. That was method number one. Method number two was assigning a keyboard shortcut, and I had mentioned that that can be done after you record it. Let me just show you for a second how that would happen. I could right-click in my ribbon. I could say I want to customize the ribbon, and then down here at the bottom, there's a thing about customizing keyboard shortcuts. And if I click on that Customize button, then I can go in and assign keyboard shortcuts to pretty much anything, not just macros. But I digress. So instead, what I want to do is add a keyboard shortcut for this macro up into this area at the top called the Quick Access toolbar. So one of the ways I can do that is to go up and click on this little pull-down arrow at the end of the Quick Access toolbar, and then slide down here to the bottom where it says More Commands. So why don't you do that with me? The right side arrow on your Quick Access toolbar, and then look for More Commands. That'll take you to this window right here. All right, so now what I need to do is find a list of my macros. Now as I scroll up and down in this list right here, I sometimes see a thing about macro. I'm not seeing it right there, but even that would not actually let me do what I want. So in order to get a list of my macros, I'm noticing up here at the top it says this is simply a list of the most popular commands. My little joke is these are the commands that were the quarterback and the cheerleaders in high school. Those are the popular commands. What I would rather see is all the commands. So I'm going to go up and click on this little list arrow in the list box. And in fact, I don't need to see all the commands, although that's a choice. Really what I want to see is a list of my macros. So I'm going to click on macros, and here they are. So I've got my fixed phone macro, I got my signature macro, I got my pull quote macro. Maybe I would like to create a button that would run my signature macro. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to move it over to the right-hand side, which currently has my save, undo, redo, and my touch mouse mode that we did in an earlier lesson. So I click on the one named Normal, because that's where it's stored, my signature. I click on it, and then I point at this Add button, and I click on that. It pops it over here to the right-hand side. And when I click on OK, I have a lovely new button right up there. And so I'm going to try it out maybe at the bottom of this document. And here's where I want my signature to appear. So I'm going to go click on that new button. And there comes my signature. Hey, having some fun now. So go ahead and do that. You're going to go up here and click on the pull-down arrow at the right of the Quick Access toolbar. You're going to look for More Commands. You're going to say, I don't want to see the popular commands. I want to see a list of my macros. Choose the one that's your signature. Add it to the right-hand side. Click on OK down at the bottom. And then move your cursor down to the end of the document, maybe by using the Control-End keyboard shortcut. And then try clicking on the button. Click the button and have it run your macro. In our previous lesson, we customized the Quick Access toolbar, adding a button up here that would run our macro. And I could do that over and over again to add more buttons to add more of those macros, but all of those icons would look the same. There was no way that we could change the icon, and under those conditions, I have to go up here and actually hover over the little icon to figure out which macro I'm going to run if I had three of them sitting next to each other. So starting with 2007, you could customize the Quick Access toolbar, but not the ribbon. Starting with 2010, you can actually make groups of buttons in the ribbon. So the structure of the ribbon here is the command tabs, and then inside the command tabs produce ribbons, and then the ribbons are broken up into groups of buttons. For example, under the Layout tab, I have the Page Setup group, I have the Paragraph group. So that's just the names of things. Tabs, groups with buttons. Now sometimes as I look at choices in the ribbon, for example, if I go over here and click on the Insert tab, then depending on the screen resolution, I might see several buttons in a group, or I might just see the name of the group and a pull-down list. For example, if you go to your Insert tab, you can probably see these choices about things that you can insert for pages without having to click on the little pull-down arrow. So this next thing I'm going to mention kind of depends on the screen resolution. You can see that when it's collapsed down like this, I just get a little icon and the name of the group. That's happening over here as well. I've got an icon for links, looks like a little globe with a chain attached, and I have to click the pull down arrow to see the choices. But again, on your screen, if you have higher resolution, then you would actually be able to see these choices without having to click on them. I mention that because of a thing that's going to happen in this lesson. So in this case, what I want to do is actually customize the ribbon itself. I would like to add a tab up here with my name on it. And then inside that tab, I would like to create my own groups of buttons. And maybe I'll have one button in a group for each of my macros. And I should actually be able to see the names of the macros without having to go up and hover over this button like I put it up in my Quick Access toolbar. So that's where we're headed right now. We're going to customize our ribbon. We're going to create a new command tab with our name on it. We're going to create our own groups. We're going to create our own buttons in there. And at first, we'll do it for our macros. So here I go. I'm going to right-click anywhere in the ribbon, and I get a little pop-up menu. And one of the choices in the pop-up menu is to customize the ribbon, and that's where I'm headed right now. So I'm right-clicking literally anywhere in the ribbon, and I'm left-clicking on Customize the Ribbon, and that takes me to this window, which we have seen one time before. The last time we were in this window, we were in here turning on the Developer tab. So what we're going to do is create a tab for ourselves. So I've got the Home tab, the Insert tab, Home tab, Insert tab. As I expand the Insert tab, I can see these groups called Pages and Tables and Illustrations. Pages group, Tables group, Illustrations group. And then we'll add buttons to those. So we're going to customize things, making some nice, robust, usable groups here. And that way, we'll start out by making one that holds buttons for our several macros. So why don't you do what I've done so far? I right-clicked anywhere in the ribbon, and then I left-click on Customize the Ribbon, and that takes you to this window. So put the video on pause, come join me. All right, next thing I want to do is add my own command tab, or just referred to as tabs here. And as I look towards the bottom of this window, I actually see a button labeled New Tab. I'm going to go click on that, and it produces a new tab named New Tab. And it throws in a group at no extra charge. So I think I'd like to say something better than New Tab. So one of the ways I can rename this tab is to click on it to turn it to blue, and then down right below here, I see a choice about rename. And that's what I'm going to click on right now. Rename that selected tab, and I'm going to put my name on it. Dan. By the way, you are allowed to have spaces in the name of the command tabs. It's not like a macro where you can't have a space in there. So I'm going to call it the Dan tab, and I click OK. And then right below the Dan tab, I've got a group called New Group, and I'd like to rename that as well. Now, I could do it the same way. I could click on it and then click Rename, but I think I've said in my earlier lessons that I'm a big fan of the right-click. So that's how I'm going to do this one. I'm going to point at New Group and right-click, and on the pop-up menu that appears, I'm going to choose to rename it. And I see a bunch of little icons. These icons will only appear when you have low resolution screen setting, so that all you can see is the name of the group and not the actual buttons. And you can't really modify these. You can only choose from this finite list here. So I'm flipping a coin. I'm going to go for the smiley face. You can feel free to choose anyone you want. And then I want to give this a better name than New Group. Maybe this will be named My Macros. Again, I'm allowed to have spaces in the names of the tabs and the names of the groups. So that's what I would like you to do so far. We had to create a new tab here. We renamed it either by left-clicking and clicking the rename button or by right-clicking and renaming it. And then we renamed the group and assigned some little icon to it. So catch up with me there. Pause that video. Make a new tab, make a new group, and rename them appropriately. So I've created a new tab. I've created a new group. Now it's time to put stuff in that group. So over at the left side, I don't need to just see the popular commands. I would like to see maybe my macros again. So I'm going to click on the list box here that says popular commands, and I'm going to say show me my macros. So there's my pull quote macro, my signature macro, my fixed phone macro. And this time, instead of clicking and then adding, I'm actually going to literally drag them over here and drop them under the group name My Macros. I wish that I could click on one and then shift click on the third one and get them all at the same time. That works in a lot of places in Word, but not here. So in this case, I have to do them one at a time. So I'm grabbing the one named pull quote, I'm dragging. Now at first it looks like I'm doing something illegal. I'm getting the Ghostbuster slash, but I'm just going to be nice and brave and keep dragging. And then I can see a little horizontal line here, and I'm going to drop it right under my group name, My Macros. And then I'm going to do that 2 more times. My signature is going to drop under there. My fixed phone is going to drop under there. And when I click on OK, I'll be able to see that I've got my own tab up there. And when I click on my tab, I see the group called My Macros, and I can actually see the names of the macros up there without having to hover over them, which is what I had to do for this little one up in my Quick Access toolbar. All right, so it is your turn to customize your ribbon. Remember how we did that? We started anywhere in the ribbon with a right click, customize the ribbon. I believe you have already added a new tab and a new group. So what you need to do now is over here where it says popular commands, get it to show you your macros, and then drag them under the group. When you're done, click OK, and then go click on the tab with your name, and you should be able to see your group of macro buttons. All right, are you feeling cool about this? I'm clicking on the little plus sign next to My Macros. There's the buttons I've added. All right, I'm going to OK that. And then it's time to try out one of my buttons here. So maybe I would like to do the My Signature macro. Or maybe I've got a phone number and I'd like to try the fixed phone. I think I'll go with that one. So first of all, I'm going to invent a phone number here, 333-444-5555. I'm going to click to put my cursor in front of that phone number. And then I'm going to run my fixed phone macro by clicking on the button. And there it is, running my macro. All right, your turn. So by now you should have the buttons up in the group that's in the tab. And then make a phone number and then click to put your cursor at the beginning of it and run your macro by the button instead of by the keyboard shortcut. And again, I hope you're having some fun, but more importantly, I hope you're thinking about the things that you might want to automate in the kind of business that you do. It's fine to look at me make something. What you've been doing here is kind of learning the general process and learning how it writes the code in the Visual Basic Editor, and then how we can assign keyboard shortcuts and how we can assign buttons to run our macros. In our previous lesson, we customized our ribbon. We right-clicked in the ribbon, we added a new command tab, it came with a new group, we renamed the tab, we renamed the group as My Macros, we added buttons, and the buttons work, we've tested them out, but they sure look funky. Wouldn't it be nice if we could rename the buttons just like we have renamed the tabs and the groups, and that's what we're going to do right now in a nice short lesson. So let's go back and customize the ribbon again. You can right-click anywhere in the ribbon, and on the pop-up menu, customize the ribbon. And I don't see the buttons in the group called My Macros until I click on the little plus sign next to My Macros. And that will expand the list. And then I'm going to right-click on the first of the buttons and rename it. And then right in here, I'm going to get rid of the normal.newMacros. And just leave the pull quote part. So that's what I'm about to do right now. I'm selecting that other stuff that I want to get rid of, deleting it, okaying it. So that'll rename the button. Why don't you do that to all 3 of those buttons? You have to do them one at a time. And while you're pausing the video and doing that, I'll be doing that at the same time. So pause the video and practice renaming those buttons, please. So you should show the new names in there right now. And when you click on OK, hey, they look a whole lot nicer up here in the ribbon. But let's make sure that they still work. So I'm going to use Control-End key to get to the end of my document, where I'm going to put in a fake phone number here, 333-444-5555. Remember, for our fixed phone, you need to have the cursor at the beginning of the phone number, so I'm going to set that up correctly. And now I'm going to go use my fixed phone button, and it works just fine with the new name, and it sure looks a lot better up in my ribbon. So that was how to create our own tab, our own group of buttons, and things are working nicely still. So that's the end of my quick little lesson on renaming the buttons that are in the ribbon. I have recorded several macros. I have buttons for several macros. But maybe I realize there are some of those macros that I'm never going to use again. For example, you've got macros that are built because you built them with me. But maybe you're thinking, I'm never going to use that fixed phone macro. I don't think I'm going to be using that pull quote macro. So that begs the question, how do you get rid of them? So let's talk, how do you get rid of macros? First thing I want to do is delete the macro itself. So I'm going to go to the Developer tab, where I can then get a list of my macros by clicking the Macros button right there. And with Fixed Phone selected, over here at the right-hand side, there is a lovely button that will let me delete my macro. I'm going to click on that, and it just checks to make sure, hey human, you might have done this by mistake. Are you sure you want to delete this macro? I'm going to say, yes please, I would like to delete that macro. And so it's gone off the list now. There is one more thing that I should do. I'm going to click the close button, and I'm going to go to my Dan tab where I have a button that would run the fixed phone macro. And right now, if I click on it, I get an error message. It says that macro can't be found. Gee, who'd have guessed? So I'm going to say, okay, I understand the macro can't be found. Now this begs the question, how do I get rid of that button? Well, the answer is I'm going to go customize the ribbon and remove it there. So again, I can right click anywhere in the ribbon, and on the pop-up menu, I can click on customize the ribbon. And then over here under the Dan tab, I'm going to click to expand the My Macros group. And there's my fixed phone selection. I'm going to click on it once, and then down here towards the bottom, I'm going to click on it once. In fact, I'm going to right click on it, and there is a choice to remove it. I'm going to click that button, remove that macro. Notice this time it didn't ask, are you sure? It just said, okay, you're the human, you have removed it. So that's how you get rid of a macro, and then this is how you get rid of the macro button. I'm clicking on the okie dokie button, and my macro button is gone. This might be a good time to save and close all the documents that you've been working on. All right, I have restarted Word, and our next couple of lessons are going to be talking about creating hyperlinks in a document. So not only are we going to talk about creating hyperlinks that jump to someplace, but we'll also create what are called bookmarks, which could be arrival places for a hyperlink. So first, let's talk about making bookmarks in a document, and then we'll talk about making hyperlinks and how the hyperlinks and the bookmarks might work together. So let's open a fresh copy of a document named Bookmarks. Let's make sure we get it from our Word sample files and not from the finished files folder. So pause the video, go open that document. I'll be doing the same thing. Its name is Bookmarks. Now in this case, I don't care about a table of contents, so I'm going to show the hidden characters. I'm going to get rid of the line that says table of contents, and I'm going to get rid of the section break here. So out here at the side, I'm selecting the table of contents and the section break. And then when I tap the delete key, everything just pops up to the top there. So take just a second to do that. Turn on the Pilcrows so you can see what you're getting. You can see where the page break has occurred, and then get rid of the title up there about the table of contents and get rid of the page break so that our data is up at the top, and then hide the Pilcrows. So catch up with me there. Pause the video, catch up. All right. So we're going to talk about a couple of different ways of using hyperlinks, and one of them is going to involve a place that you could arrive through the hyperlink called a bookmark. So I'm going to start out making a couple of bookmarks in this document that could be then receivers of hyperlinks. So let us scroll down, and we'll go to this part about review of year results. And let's put a cursor right at the beginning of that, and we're going to place a bookmark there. So the bookmarks are found under the Insert tab. I'm clicking on Insert, and then over here I see a little pull-down arrow called Links. Again, if your screen resolution is better than mine, you might be able to already see a choice about Bookmark. And I'm going to click on Bookmark. And this one says that there are a couple of bookmarks in here already. I'm going to ignore those so far. In fact, I'm going to delete them. So there's one called Future. By the way, if you want to see where it is, you could click on the one called Future and then click Go To, and it actually goes down and finds that. Here's the cursor flashing at a place called Future. There's another one called Growth. I click on that. I say Go To. Takes me to up here, the part about positioning for long-term growth. But I would like to make our own. I'd like to make a bookmark of our own. So I'm going to close the bookmarks window here. And then I'm going to position my mouse at the place I would like the bookmark to occur. And that's going to be up here a little ways where it says Review of Year Results. So I'm going to click to put my cursor right at the beginning of that. And then I'm going to go back up to my Insert tab. I'm going to click on my Links pull-down list. I'm going to click on Bookmark. And I'm going to name this one Yearly Result, or how about Review? Review might be a good name for this. So up here in the bookmark name, we'll call it Review. And then you have to click the Add button or hit the Enter key. Since the Add button has the blue focus box around it, hitting the Enter key is the same as clicking on Add. Now my list disappeared. So that makes me wonder, was I successful at actually creating one? Well, I could go look again, Links, Bookmark. Sure enough, there's one called Review. So we've got our bookmark. Let's see a couple of simple ways that we can use it. You just saw one. If you go to the screen where you can create a bookmark, you can click on one and tell it to go to that. Another way to do that is to go to my Home tab, and up here where it says Find, I could click on Go To, and then it says, what do you want to go to? Do you want to go to a particular page number that you're going to type? Do you want to go to the start of a section? Or would you like to go to a bookmark? And I'm going to choose Bookmark. And then on the right-hand side, I have a pull-down list of the available bookmarks. And I could go to the one that I created called Review and click on Go To down there. And sure enough, it takes me right to that spot. So that'll work, but that's not really how bookmarks are usually used. Bookmarks are usually used as the receivers for hyperlinks. So I'm going to close this window. I can see that it's working just fine. All right, I'm going to scroll to the top of the document, and I'm just going to click to put my cursor up there. And then I'm going to save the document to include the new bookmark, but I'm going to use Save As so that I can put it in my Finished Documents folder. And I think instead of just leaving it named Bookmarks, maybe we'll call it Hyperlink Bookmarks. So let's use File and Save As. Let's navigate over to our Finished Word Documents folder. And I'd like to name it Hyperlinked Bookmarks. Maybe not hyperlinked, just Hyperlink Bookmarks. Make sure it's going to go into the Finished Word Documents folder and finish saving it. And it's going to upgrade it to a newer file format, and that's fine. So in our previous session, we created a bookmark. In this session, we're going to start talking about the opposite end, the hyperlinks. So I'd like to open another document here. Let's open a document named Example, please. So pause the video, go open a file named Example. We'll open this from our Word sample files folder. So as I'm reading through this document, it seems to be mostly about using Microsoft Word itself, mentioning themes and building blocks. By the way, if you read through this, it's got some interesting information in it, some of which we've talked about, some of which we haven't. But let's say at the end of this thing, we'd like to put in a little hyperlink that says, learn more about this at office.com. And we'll create a hyperlink to actually go to that website. So first thing I'd like to do, let's move to the end of the document using Control and the End key. And then let's put in these words. Learn more at office.com. Now, you don't actually have to spell out the name of the website. You could say, learn more by clicking here. Maybe we'll make it say that just to demonstrate that it doesn't have to say the name of the place we're going to. So learn more by clicking here. Pause the video, catch up with me. All right, now the hyperlink has to have a clicking place. And so I'm going to select the words clicking here, and then I'm going to insert a hyperlink right there. And to do that, I'm going to the Insert tab, I'm going to the Links group, I'm going to click on Hyperlink. Opens up a lovely little dialog window where there are a ton of things that you can hyperlink to. Hyperlink to a file that exists in a place that I can get to, maybe on a shared drive, for example. Hyperlink to some other place in this document. Hyperlink to an email address. Hyperlink to another document in the current folder. Or hyperlink to websites, existing file or web page. So that's what we're going to do right now. Hyperlink to a web page. So the text that's being displayed there says clicking here, and then down here at the bottom is a box that says address. So I would like to send it to www.office.com. And then once you've typed that in, click OK, and you'll see the look of a hyperlink the way you see it on web pages, blue and underlined. And as I hover over it, it says Control-click to follow the link. So catch up with me. We selected those words. We went to the Insert tab. We inserted link, hyperlink, and then we filled in the web address down at the bottom was www.office.com. All right, now let's test it out. So I'm going to hover over, click here. I see Control-click to follow the hyperlink. I'm Control-clicking. It should be opening my favorite browser right now. Here it comes. And I am now arriving at office.com, and I'm just going to maximize that window. So there's my first hyperlink from a Word document to a website. So go test out your hyperlink. You hover over it, it'll tell you you can't just click, you have to Control-click on it, but make sure it's working. And then once it is, feel free to close that website to work back into your document. So there's our first hyperlink. Let's try another one. This time I'd like it to open a document in my finished documents folder. It was the one we were working on just before this called Hyperlink Bookmarks. So maybe I'll write something that says go to the Hyperlink Bookmarks file. And then we need to select something. You could select all of the words, or maybe we'll select these words, Hyperlink Bookmarks. And then I'd like to insert a hyperlink there. So I'm going back up to my links. I'm going to insert a hyperlink. And so we see one here says existing file or web page. We just did the web page thing. Now I want to do the existing file thing. But as I'm looking over here towards the right-hand side, I can see it's not looking in my finished documents folder. It's looking in my Word sample files folder, which is not where I have the document called Hyperlink Bookmarks. So first thing I need to do is go over here and browse to the folder that I really want. So here's the words that I'll be clicking on, and then way over here I'm going to click on this little folder. It may be hard to see its name. It says Browse for File. So I'm clicking there. I'm going to go find my finished Word documents folder, and then in there I'm going to scroll down and find the one that we created moments ago called Hyperlink Bookmarks. And I'm going to OK that. And OK again. So catch up with me. Here was the typing that we put in. Go to Hyperlink Bookmarks file. And then select that text. And then navigate to the folder named Finished Documents. And select the file named Hyperlink Bookmarks, please. Catch up with me, everybody. All right, let's see it in action. So I hover over it. It says Control-click to follow the link. I hold the Control key, gives me the hyperlink hand. I click on it. There it is. It has opened that document, and it went right to the top of the document. I'm now going to close that document, returning back to my example file. All right, your turn to catch up to me there. I think you already created the hyperlink. Now test it out. Control-click. It should take you to the top of that document. And then close that document and come on back here. So when you hyperlink to a file, it takes you to the top of that file. But you may remember in the file named Hyperlink Bookmarks, we created a bookmark named Review. So this time I'd like to talk about hyperlinking to a place in the document, hyperlink to the bookmark in the document. So I'm going to start a new line, and I'm going to say, look at the Burke Properties Year-End Review. And I'm going to turn that into a hyperlink by selecting Year-End Review. I'm going to insert a link, a hyperlink. By the way, as I hover over that, it tells me the keyboard shortcut is Control-K. So maybe I'll use that method for going to a hyperlink this time, for setting up the hyperlink this time. So I've got the text selected. I am now using that keyboard shortcut, Control-K. Takes me to that same window. And then this time I want to go to the folder named Finished Documents. So I'll have to browse. And I'm going to my Finished Documents folder. And I'm going to find the file named Hyperlink Bookmarks. Double-clicking on it. And now I notice over at the right-hand side, there's a button that says Bookmark. When I click on this, it's going to show me the bookmarks in the file that I've just chosen. So I did have to choose the file first, and now I'm going to choose the bookmark to go to inside the file named Finished Word Documents Hyperlink Bookmarks. So I'm clicking on Bookmark, and here is a list of the bookmarks in that document, and I'm going to choose the one called Review, and then I can choose OK a couple of times. So catch up with me there. Here's the words that we were typing. Select that text, Control-K to insert the hyperlink, navigate to the folder called Finished Documents, navigate to the file named Hyperlink Bookmarks, and then click on the Bookmarks button way over at the right-hand side and choose the specific bookmark named Review. All right, everybody, time to test it out. So we do not already have the Hyperlink Bookmarks document open. I asked you to close it a little while ago. So now I'm ready to test out my hyperlink here. I'm hovering. I see it says Control-Click, follow the link. I'm controlling. I'm clicking. So it's checking out. It says, hey, are you sure you want to do this? This could be an unsafe location. I'm going to click on yes, I want to continue. Not only does it open up that Hyperlink Bookmarks document, it takes me right to the bookmark that was the review of the year results. Right? It didn't take me to the top. When I told it to hyperlink to the document, it took me to the top. When I told it to hyperlink to a bookmark, it arrived at a place in the document that's not necessarily at the top. So that's how the bookmarks and the hyperlinks can work together. And again, this is fun to do with us, but hopefully you're thinking about, well, what would I want to hyperlink to in the documents that I create? That's certainly the most important part of this. So that's our subject of bookmarks and hyperlinks and how they work together. In an earlier lesson, we talked about inserting hyperlinks into a Word document, hyperlinks to other places in the document, hyperlinking to other documents and arriving at the top of the document, hyperlinking to bookmarks in another document, or hyperlinking to websites. This time I want to go about this a different way. I would actually like to take a Word document and save it as a web page that we could then maybe upload to our corporate website. So we won't see the part about actually uploading it to the website, but we will be able to see how to create a web document from a Word document. So we're going to go open a document named Saving as Web Page, please. So take a moment and do that. I'll be doing that while you're doing it. So pause the video and go grab a file named Saving as Web Page. So you can see it has a table of contents. As I scroll down a bit, we've seen documents that are like this before. This one happens to have a picture in it. So we want to take this and turn it into an HTML file that could then be uploaded to a website if we contact our webmaster and have them make that happen. So this is going to be a Save As command. I'm going up to my File menu. I'm choosing Save As. I'm going to browse, and I want to maybe put this in my Finished Documents folder, as we've been doing pretty much all day. And we can keep it named Saving as Web Page, only it won't end in docx. It'll be some sort of HTML, HTML, something like that. So we're going to go down to the Save as Type list box, and I click in that box, and I see a list of things that I could save it as. Now, if I save it as a web page, then it will save the HTML file, and it will create a folder where it puts any pictures that I've used in my document. It'll do some XML formatting and save all of those things in a separate folder. If I save it as web page filtered, that will save it as an HTML file that I can no longer edit in Word. And if I save it as single file web page, then it builds the picture in and it doesn't make this separate folder with all of the objects that are part of the website. So I prefer that. It just makes a nice, clean, easy, good-looking, no extra folder document. So that's where I'm going to head. I'm going to go with single file web page And when I do that, I'm going to put it in my finished Word documents folder. And if I want, I can change the title. Automatically, it has a title here that says Burke Annual Report. I could change that to something else. If I zoom in a little bit, it does say title of the page that's displayed in the title bar of their browser. So I'll just leave it as Burke Annual Report, and then I'm going to finish saving this as a single file web page. So you'll notice that there are times when it maybe changes things in a document. It says that we had small caps in here, and they will become all caps. And then when I click on continue, and so you can see what it looks like now, suddenly my table of contents actually looks like hyperlinks. And part of the reason for that is if I go up to my View tab, I will discover that normally I'm working in a print layout view, but once I tell it that I want to save it as a web page, then it switches to the web layout view, and so that's why my information is looking a little different. If I went back to print layout view, there's pretty much what it looked like before, but here's a little sample of what it's going to look like as a web page. So it's still got the little picture down there, and things are looking pretty good. And so now we could actually take this document, contact our corporate webmaster, have them upload this to the website, and people would actually see this document right on the website. Rather than having some hyperlink that downloads the document as a Word document, here they will actually see it as a web page. So that was pretty simple when you tell it to save it as a single file web page. There is a special document that I have included in our Word sample files, and it's a web page, and it's a way to play tic-tac-toe, and I created it in Word. A little bit of a backstory. I grew up in Detroit area. My wife is from Bakersfield. She married a guy in the Peace Corps years ago, wound up in Michigan, ditched that guy, and about 10 years later we met and got together and got married and came out to visit California. This would have been late 90s, early 2000s for her brother's wedding. And while we were out here, we visited an arcade. I think it was in Monterey. And in that arcade, this was back when you could play an arcade game for $0.25. In that arcade, there was a place where there was a little glass, and behind the glass was a live chicken. And you would put in your quarter, and you could play tic-tac-toe against Harold the chicken. And he was good, man. So you would see him sort of peck, peck, peck towards the front of the glass, and then an X would appear in this tic-tac-toe board, and then you'd click a button, you'd move a little cursor and click a button to make your O move, and then he would make his X move. You'd see him peck, peck, peck behind the glass. And, it wasn't too long before you figured it out. He was just pecking at a little thing that would feed him some seed, and that would somehow trigger a computer that was running the game. So I figured, yeah, if they could set it up so that Harold the chicken could play tic-tac-toe, then maybe I could spend a little bit of time making a tic-tac-toe game, and I chose to do it in Word. So that's the weird story about this file. Let's look at what it looks like as a web page, and then we'll see what it looks like in Word and kind of how it was constructed. So I'm not necessarily going to open it in Word. I'm just going to go to the Word sample files folder and open the HTML file. So I'm just minimizing Word. We'll probably come back to that in a minute. I'm heading over to my Word sample files folder, and the name of the file that I'm looking at is tic-tac-toe. Notice its file name extension is HTM. And I'm going to double click on that. And in my case, it opens up in Internet Explorer. And sometimes I have to finagle it a little bit to get it just the perfect size here. Maybe I'll zoom in or zoom out a little bit. May have to work on that. So I'm going to scroll up just enough so you can't see the words New Game. And I'm going to click here to begin. And because it's a web page, I don't have to control click. It's just a regular hyperlink. So I click on it, and here's the opening of the game. And the computer, the chicken, if you will, has made the move first. And then I can click on any of these little XOXOXOs to make my move, and then he'll make his move right away. So I'm going to click over here. There's my O, and there's his X, and now it's my turn right away. And I'm going to go over here and click to block him, and he moves over there. And now I got to go down here to block him, and he moved up there. And then I'll go up here to block him, and it says, all right, a draw. Click here to play again. All right, he's made his first move. This time I'm clicking here. And he puts his move there, and I'll click over here. And he makes his move there. And let's see, so I'll click over here, and he makes his move there, and I'll click over there, and a draw again. All right, one more time. So this time I'm clicking here, he puts his move down there, click there, he moves again, I'm going over here, he moves again. So if I'm a smart player, I can usually play him to a draw. But let's see what happens if I'm not such a smart player. I'm clicking here, he made his move down there, click over here, he drops it right in there, I win, na-na-na-na-na. He plays the same way every single time based on what I'm doing. So this is me playing against the mythical Harold the Chicken to play a tic-tac-toe game that was actually created in Word. So if you want, take a moment and close Word and go open that tic-tac-toe file. You saw me, I had to kind of zoom in and out a little bit to try to get it just the right size. But go ahead and play a couple of games against the mythical Harold the Chicken. And then when you come back, we'll take a look at it in Word and see how it was sort of created. All right, so I'm going to close it in my Internet Explorer browser. Then I'm going to go back and start Word, and I'm going to tell it to open that tic-tac-toe file. And you should do the same. So now that you played a little bit of tic-tac-toe in the web page, let's go open that thing as a Word document, and we'll see the structure behind it. So this is what it looks like in the opening, and if I've been scrolling down, I see that all of the boards are actually in one big long page here. In fact, as I look down at the bottom, it says it's 42 pages long. It's just that when I saved it as a web page, you only see, little bits of it, and you don't really realize that it's basically scrolling up and down in here. Also, if I go up here and say, hey, I want to see a list of the bookmarks, one of the ways to do that is I can go up to the find command, click the little pull down arrow and tell it I want to go to, and then I can choose what I want to go to. Do I want to go to a page? No, I'd actually like to go to a bookmark. And when I click on bookmark, then I can see a bookmark named new game, and if I click on the pull down arrow, man, there's a ton of them. And all these bookmarks have names like P11 and P12 and so forth. And so what they are is little hyperlinks that take you to the bookmarks, which are the various boards of the game. So I'm going to close this little window here. So this stuff right here, notice these are hyperlinks. Now that I'm not viewing it as a web page, it says I have to control click to follow the link. And then if I look really closely, I'm not sure I can use my zooming software to see the little tooltip. Yeah, there it is. So it says if I place my marker here, then it's going to go to the bookmark named P1 in this file named tic-tac-toe.htm. So that's actually how I built this document, as just a ton of bookmarks with hyperlinks that go to a place that seems logical for the way the computer would play. But he always plays the same way. If you play the same way, he'll play the same way. So he's not any smarter than Harold the Chicken. He just doesn't get fed any chicken feed. So a little fun there. Not sure that you're ever going to use anything like that, but a little bit of brain candy. I'm going to bet that pretty much everyone within the sound of my voice has worked with PDF files in one way or another. Maybe you have even saved as a PDF file. What's the usual whole point of saving a document as a PDF file? Usually so that the person that you're sending it to can't edit it, right? Well, the rules have changed a little bit. But let's talk about saving the PDF in the first place. In 2007 version of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you could download a plugin from either Adobe's website or Microsoft's website that would be a creator for a PDF file, let you save as a PDF file. You would install this thing once and it would work all across the Office suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So since 2007 version of Word, you've been able to save as a PDF. Starting in 2010, you didn't need to download a plugin, it was just built in. So let's see how we could save as a PDF file. We'll start with a Word document named Stockholder Report. Let's open that from our sample files, and then we'll save it as a PDF into the finished files folder. So again, you're going to go open a file right now named Stockholder Report from your sample files folder. All right, so your screen should look like mine. And so I've got my table of contents here. As I hover over something in the table of contents, control click to follow the link. We've seen that happen before. So we're now going to use a save as to create a PDF file, and maybe we'll just keep the same name, Stockholder Report. And let's make sure we put it in the Finished Documents folder. So I'm about to do that right now. I'm going to go to the File menu. I'm going to do a Save As. I want to head to my Finished Word Documents folder. And then down here at the bottom in the Save As Type box, I'm going to save it as PDF. So I click in that list box. I see the choice to save it as a PDF file. I'm going to keep the same name, Stockholder Report, just double checking to make sure it's going to go in my Finished Documents folder, and then I'm going to finish saving that. And in my case, it immediately opens in my copy of Adobe Acrobat Reader. So I'm scrolling up and down, I point at something in my table of contents. I don't see anything about control click, I just see the hyperlink hand. I'm clicking on it, hyperlink works just fine. So this is a PDF file created from a Word document. You may have even done this before. Most of the time when we take a Word document and save it as a PDF file, why do we bother doing that? Well, the general answer is that unless the person you're emailing this to has a copy of Adobe Acrobat, they won't be able to edit it. That's usually the whole reason to take a Word document and save it as a PDF. However, the rules have changed a bit, because starting with the version 2013 of Microsoft Word, you would now be able to open that PDF file and edit it in Word. Here's the way it used to go. You would take the document, you'd edit it in Word, you'd save it as a Word document, then you'd save it as a PDF file. Then maybe you attach that PDF file to an email, you send it out, and then you start getting emails back saying, hey, there's a couple of problems in this PDF file. The night of the fundraiser is on Sunday, not on Saturday. And it starts at 7 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock, and the entry fee is different than what you said. So in the past, you better make sure that you had saved that as a Word document before you saved it as a PDF file, because Word didn't have the ability to open the PDF file and edit it. So you would have to go open the Word document, edit the Word document, save it as a Word document again, and then save it as a PDF file, and then go through that whole process, sometimes more than once. Well, starting in 2013, Word now has the ability to open a PDF file, and it doesn't have to be a PDF file that was created in Word. It was just that we didn't have any PDF files to work with, so we created one to work with. But you could open any PDF file now in Word, edit it in Word, and save it as a PDF without having to save it as a Word document anymore. So that's what we're going to demonstrate in our next lesson. So feel free to close Adobe Acrobat, and I would recommend totally close Word. And when it asks you if you want to save this as a Word document, we will say, no thanks, don't save. Not required here. That's the whole point of what I'm discussing. So I don't have to save that as a Word document, having already saved it as a PDF. So I'm saying, nope, don't save that one. So do what I did. Close your Adobe Reader, close Microsoft Word, and in the next lesson, we're going to reopen that PDF file in Word and edit it without having to save it as a Word document. Welcome back, one and all. So in our previous lesson, we saved a file as a PDF so that we would have something to play with here. So now we're going to go open that PDF file and edit it right here in Word. So I'm headed down to my Open Other Documents connection. I'm going to navigate over to my finished Word documents folder, where I discover that I have a copy of Stockholder Report as a PDF file, but I don't have a copy of Stockholder Report as a Word document, and that's kind of my whole point here. So I'm in Word, and I'm opening this PDF file. Come do that same thing. Put your video on pause. We've totally closed Acrobat, we totally closed Word, and then we restarted Word, and now we're telling Word to go open this PDF file. And as I open it, it comes in looking like this. I get a little message that says it's about to convert this to an editable Word document. The good news is I shouldn't have to actually save it as a Word document anymore. I can edit it in Word and save it as a PDF without saving it as a Word document in between. So I'm clicking on OK. I understand that it's going to turn it into a Word document temporarily. So catch up with me. Put the video on pause. In Word, open that PDF file. It does it really slick nowadays. All right, so right now it is temporarily a Word document, but it hasn't been saved as a Word document. So I don't know how many of you own a copy of Adobe Acrobat and have ever tried to edit documents using it. It is really not a great word processor. For trying to do things like making 2 columns, you would actually have to do some coding in Adobe Acrobat to create 2 columns, but Word is great at that. So I'm scrolling down to, let's see, I'm on the 3rd page of my 7 pages, and I'm looking at these 2 paragraphs that start with excluding and non-recurring items. So scroll down till you can see those, please. All right, here we go. We're going to take these 2 paragraphs right here and turn them into 2 columns. So I'm selecting those 2 paragraphs, and then I'm going to go to my Layout tab, where I will then click on Columns and turn it into 2 columns. Please join me there. So pause the video, select those 2 paragraphs, turn them into 2 columns under the Layout tab. All right, here comes the whole point of this thing. I am now going to save this as a PDF without actually saving it as a Word document. So I'm going up to my File tab. I'm going to do a Save As. I'm going to head to my Finished Word Documents folder. Maybe I'll try to keep the same name here, Stockholder Report. Now it's ready to save it as a Word document. Be careful, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that you don't have to do that. So come with me and switch from Word document to a PDF file. And now when I click on Save, I'm making sure that I'm putting it in the Finished Documents folder. Now as I click on Save, it says we can't save this file because it's read-only. Okay, well that sounds like something has gone wrong, but it's really the way that it's built in. It says if you want to keep your changes, you're going to need to name it something different. Okay, well, that's a small price to pay. So I'm going to click on the Okie dokie button. All right, I understand that. I still want to put it in the Finished Documents folder. And now, again, I'm going to be very careful not to save it as a Word document. It's trying real hard to save that thing as a Word document. I'm going to say, no, thank you. I would rather save it as a PDF file. But I'm going to have to change its name slightly. How about Edited Stockholder Report, ending in a PDF? So I'm just going to change the name slightly like that, adding the word edited. And again, I'm making very sure that I'm putting it in the Finished Word Documents folder, saving it as Edited Stockholder Report on PDF. I'm clicking on Save. Now it claims that that's in use by another program, but that's not actually true. I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to try one more time to save that as a PDF. And so by simply persevering and going past the little thing that said it was being used by some other program, I discovered that I was actually able to save that as Edited Stockholder Report. I'm not sure what its complaint was about the fact that it seemed to be opened by some other program or person. Turned out that wasn't really true. So I never actually saved that as this Word document, Edited Stockholder Report. Not quite sure where that line came from here, but the whole point of this is that I was able to open the PDF file, edit the PDF file in Word, save it as a PDF file, and just kind of blew through a little warning that I got, but I was totally successful at saving this as Edited Stockholder Report. And then to prove that I'm successful at it, I'm going to double click on it and let it open in the Adobe Reader program. And as I begin scrolling down, there are my 2 columns. Woo-woo! So a little bit of a road bump there where it looked like things were going badly, but if you just brave through it, you should be as successful as I was. And again, what we're demonstrating here is we were actually able to edit this PDF easier in Word than we would have been able to in Adobe Acrobat. And please remember that I didn't have to start this as a Word document and turn it into a PDF and then only be able to edit that one. This could have been any PDF file. It's just that I didn't have one in my sample folder, so we had to build one to play with. All right, so I hope that you've been able to power through that and create your own PDF without having to save it as a Word document. And that's the end of our Module 6. So I hope you've had a great time checking out our various lessons and that you found them useful, and that even more importantly, you're thinking about how you're going to use these little tips and tricks in the kind of documents that you work with. So this is Dan McAllister signing off. Have a great rest of your day, one and all.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget we also offer live classes in Office applications, professional development,